And now something completely different.
Good afternoon. I'm speaking to you live just outside.
I like to think balding is just God's way of saying, now let's see you get laid.
Is it true that if you don't use it, you lose it?
What I'd really like to do is put the greatness of this man in perspective.
The hair loss community has a lot to be thankful for, having you as a spokesperson.
You mean you just call this guy up?
About life and about reality.
And now, America's #1 reality radio show for men. Live from Los Angeles, it's Spencer Kobren's The Bald Truth.
Hey guys, welcome to the show, 888-659-3727. How you doing, Joe? You are listening to and watching the Hair Loss Show. It's great to be here on a Tuesday night. Obviously, we are a little late. That's just the way that it is. Our start time is between top of the hour and quarter after.
I was getting my hair ready.
Yeah. I was actually getting mine ready. Speaking of hair, and by the way, guys, if you're new to the show, don't know who we are, what I'm doing here, and what Joe Tillman is doing here, and if you're listening to the show and don't know who the fuck Joe Tillman is, at least when I refer to the guy on your left, I'm a consumer advocate for men and women dealing with hair loss. I am the founder of the American Hair Loss Association, the International Alliance of Hair Restoration Surgeons, the author of some pretty well-known books on the subject of the prevention and treatment of hair loss, first being The Bald Truth, and the second, The Truth About Women's Hair Loss. And I have been doing this radio broadcast, or now this internet broadcast, we're in our 21st year of doing the show. Joe Tillman, the guy you may or may not see, who's on your left if you're watching the broadcast, is known as the original hair transplant mentor. He is a guy who has been in the trenches himself as far as the surgical hair restoration or hair transplant surgery. He has worked in the field in one capacity or another for well over 15 years.
17.
17 years. Yeah, that's well over 15.
Yeah. Just like being a bit more specific.
Yeah. And he's a guy who has who's seen it all, who has been working, where I have been able to get all the information and garner all my information initially from a much broader aspect of the field, both from behind the scenes in the hair restoration industry and hair transplant industry, as well as through countless thousands of patients who have contacted us and contacted me throughout the years. Joe kind of originally started in more of an isolated fashion, but in the trenches where he was actually speaking with, seeing patients in the OR day in and day out. And then when he became independent and said, fuck this, became independent and said, I'm going to do my own thing.
Actually.
Yeah. Then his eyes were opened up to to kind of some more of the reality of the industry that I was able to kind of show him. And then what he brought to the table was his, in the trenches, in the OR, behind the desk, so to speak, perspective of being in the consulting room, in the counseling room, in the, again, operating room, and seeing how physicians and how people in the industry deal with unhappy patients, deal with bad shit that's being written about them online, deal with, all of the consequences of being in this field and, at least in that capacity. So he brought a lot of information to the table that, while I was aware of it, he was able to provide a much more intimate detail. And together, I can't think of anything funny to say, but together, we bring a shitload of experience to you guys. And frankly, we are a major aspect of this really fucked up field. And I mean an aspect in a good way. We're here to tell you the truth. We're here to provide you with all of the insight and inside information that others cannot provide you with or refuse to provide you with because they need to make a living pulling the wool over your eyes.
Yeah. That's well said. Thank you for the intro.
Sure. That's what I do best.
Well, look, we've experienced some things even more recently, like even today, just where clinics are continuing to exude in how can I put this? Exude in ignorance of the market around them, how to properly deal with patients, and what's really important. Is it what other clinics are doing? Like this kills me. It's like some clinics will be really concerned about what another clinic is doing when what they should really be concerned about is what the entire market is doing and what the long-term implications of how they're behaving is going to influence the market itself or influence patients. And it's one of those things that it never ceases to amaze me. It's like after all this time in this industry, all the doctors that I've known for many, many years, it still shocks me the short-sightedness that some people have. And I know part of it's human nature, but there seems to be a lot of human nature going on in this particular.
I'm going to have to. I agree with almost every point that you made, but I don't believe that part of it in this case is typical human nature. I think that there is a certain level of what is the word that I'm looking for where I don't sound like a complete dick? A certain level of not acceptance, but of entitlement that these physicians have because they just happen to get into the game earlier than other physicians. The problem is the game is very small when they got into the game. So it was very easily controlled and easily manipulated. I wrote something about the black market on Facebook. Didn't get a tremendous amount of likes, even though it was a good video. But the reality is the only reason a specific group of physicians is now calling what's happening in this field the black market is because they no longer have control of what was a black market in a sense. There was really only a small percentage of their colleagues who were doing and performing hair transplant surgery to state-of-the-art standards and doing it ethically and marketing ethically. A very small percentage. That's why I founded the International Alliance of Hair Restoration Surgeons. The International Alliance of Hair Restoration Surgeons wasn't founded like, for instance, the American Board of Hair Restoration Surgery to circumvent government control, to circumvent government scrutiny, to circumvent public scrutiny. The IHRS was founded to embrace public scrutiny, to let the public know what the reality is and what's happening in the industry, and to let them know that, look, hair transplantation could be an incredible experience if you are the right candidate and find the right surgeons and surgical team. But if you don't, you are fucked. And most of these people out there that are out, in front of the podium, that have all the ribbons and the sashes, they are not the guys that you want to go to have good work. And this is why I became public enemy number one in their eyes. And the reality is now they are using, I would say, this whole black market campaign as kind of like subterfuge to kind of, make it appear as though, this is terrible to say, but it's true, make it appear as though somehow they are righteous, but the reality is they just lost control of the market, they're losing their shirts, they don't know what to do, so they got to make some shit up. This has always been the field. It's just scaled now to a level that has made this place more dangerous than it's ever been because more people are being harmed than ever. When there were only 200 or 300 people in the industry, there was a limited amount of people who could be harmed. Now it is endless. And those who were doing the harm 10, 15 years ago can't make the same money doing the harm they were doing. So now they're all freaked out. Am I wrong about that, Joe?
No, you are not wrong about that. Sorry, I was addressing an issue that we have in the chat room.
What's that?
Where when people are using colorful metaphors, even misspelled on purpose, like PHUCK or PHUK, YouTube is apparently seeing that and throws it into instant moderation. And I have no control over that. So if you're making a comment and you want to use some sort of colorful metaphor, I get the option of showing or hiding that post. So because I'm usually talking to you or talking to someone on the phone that calls in, I'm not actually able to watch this. So if you're going to make some sort of comment like that, it's just not going to get through. So best to keep it clean and all your comments can be seen.
There you go.
That's a new development.
We'll take some phone calls, 888-659-3727. But the reality is, look, and I put this out there again for public consumption, this industry can be helped. I made the point, and I think I made it pretty clear that, the American Board of Plastic Surgery, the American Society of Plastic Surgery, I should say, ASPS, as well as ASAPS, the American Society of Aesthetic Plastic Surgeons, or Surgery, or is it surgeons? Whatever it is, the two, big, the main board for board-certified plastic surgeons, and also then the aesthetic side, which is ASAPS, which is the aesthetic organization for board-certified plastic surgeons. They've been working for years to try to put an end to an actual black market, a real black market, a black market that's actually killing people. And they spent millions of dollars on feckless, useless campaigns. These are two organizations that have a history of being kind of rivals, in a sense. And they decided to come together and collaborate. Now, they ran their separate campaigns, but it was the exact same message. And they spent a lot of money. They got a tremendous amount of press. People were actually being killed, so of course the press picked this up. And what's happened in the last 5 years? The real black market in cosmetic surgery has grown exponentially. No matter how many dollars, no matter how many influencers, no matter how many, ads, no matter how many campaigns, no matter what they've spent on social media, no matter who they're connected to, no matter how well organized these organizations are. And I got to tell you this, these are a lot more powerful and a lot more organized than the ISHRS. One of the organizations is actually under the umbrella of the ABMS. So we're talking about true board certification here and an organization that's actually attached to the ABMS. They couldn't accomplish shit and people were dying.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Okay, now I'm a believer of, just because somebody else couldn't do it doesn't mean that I can't do it. Doesn't mean that it's impossible. But given all of the information that I have, at least, and seeing what I've seen, there is no way that this group of people who are trying to run this campaign to save hair transplant surgery, there's no possible way that they could be effective. They do not have the weapons to win this war. They do not have the mental ability or capacity, or just, they don't have the wherewithal. It's just the way that it is. And they refuse to allow the people that do to actually collaborate and make it easier for them to do their job. So it's just going to have to be done for them. And they are going to have to be left behind. Sorry.
That's what it's going to work out. That's the way it's going to work out.
The phone number is 888-659-3727. And why do I do this, guys? And why are we doing this? People are getting fucked up. There's no reason for it. And unlike what's happened in mainstream plastic surgery, this could actually be changed. the ISHRS and the industry as a whole actually has an opportunity. Is that my headphone? Actually has an opportunity to make this work, to make this happen. Unfortunately, the ASPS and ASAPs didn't have that opportunity. They were kind of left to their own devices. They had no one to really rely on and to help them who understood the industry and understood how to kind of reach people. The ISHRS does, and it is my contention that the only reason people are not being helped is because they don't want to lose control. They feel like, they don't want to work with non-physicians to actually save people's lives.
It's beneath them.
They'd rather spend money on campaigns and all kinds of bullshit and hire outside firms that have no idea what they're doing when it comes to this industry than to actually just say, hey, yeah, let's make something happen together so we can save some fucking lives. But look, the offer and the option is off the table now because we have to move in another direction. Phone number is 888-659-3727. Guys, if you're considering surgical hair restoration, please understand that the black market is everywhere. The entire field is a black market. There is more of a black market than there is a non-black, than a real market. And that's what you have to understand. Only a handful of doctors and clinics are performing state-of-the-art hair transplant surgery ethically and, again, to state-of-the-art standards. The rest are full of shit. 888-659-3727.
Good night.
Good night. Let's see who this is.
That was a great close.
Hey, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from? Hey, man.
Hello.
Say hello. You've been holding on for 10 minutes. Nothing.
Well.
Call back, guys. 888-659-3727. Let me make sure that phone line is working. It is. Feel free to call back, 888-659-3727. I know that we start the show a lot, the same bullshit to these guys, but every day there's something new. Every day I read some craziness.
And there is craziness, for sure.
I see a guy, and John Cole gets a lot of shit, but I see a guy, a couple of guys who are like, you know what? There's some really bad work being done in parts of Europe. Why don't we go to a place that's, a nice vacation destination where we could also have lower overhead and train real physicians, and also we can work ourselves and give people who can't afford surgical hair restoration in their, local municipalities, their local areas, who are willing to travel a little bit, a slightly less expensive option, but with good surgery. Makes complete sense because there is a large percentage of the population that can't afford hair transplant surgery. And this still isn't incredibly affordable. It's more expensive than, say, going to one of these Turkish mills. Not that all hair transplant surgery in Turkey are being performed by mills. There's some good surgeons out there and some good clinics. But people are upset about that. This is one fucking clinic. How many surgeries do you think they can perform, even if they were able to perform 100 a day? It is not going to affect the livelihoods and the businesses of those who are doing good work, who would be treating people who are willing to spend what they believe is of value to them to have a great hair transplant and a different life.
I thought that I hope I explained it well in this discussion that we're all having, but I think that what a lot of doctors don't recognize is that for the past 50 years or longer that the hair transplant market has been around, there's been a completely overlooked segment of the market, and that is the low cost market.
Right.
Like there's never been. I remember early in my career coming across a couple of clinics, even in North America, that were shockingly cheap. Like I remember, like 2006, I remember a strip clinic in Southern California offering $2 a graft.
Yeah,
across the board.
It was right in Venice Boulevard. They
and
ended up killing somebody.
yeah, they wound up killing someone. They're a very dangerous clinic, but that was the first
Allegedly.
That was the first incident I've seen, or incidents of me finding a really cheap clinic. But then, obviously what we've got now is a whole different story. But
then you had affordable hair clinics that came out years ago. I think the name of the clinic is Affordable Hair Clinics. Essentially what they do is they
or finance it.
Say it again?
Were they really affordable, or they just finance it?
No, it's like $2 a graft or $3 a graft. And essentially what they do is they just contract physicians. Some of them are good, some of them not so great, and they put it under their umbrella. I guess guys who have some holes in their schedules will sign up with these guys.
Okay.
And so it was affordable, and some of the doctors were actually pretty good.
Okay, so the approach was, hey, would you rather make some money as opposed to
no money?
No money. Then that's a no-brainer.
We're having some sort of weird issue with our connection
between us.
You're like Max Headroom.
It's the haircut. Is this still going on?
Yeah, it's okay. Well, it'll probably fix itself.
Okay. Well, anyway, but yeah, it just kind of hit me. It's like, these guys, the market has been this segment of the market has been completely overlooked on a large scale from the beginning. Okay, so a few people have stepped up trying to take advantage of it, but they failed miserably as far as like influencing and developing this segment into what it is today. But I felt it was interesting. I said you can't blame Turkey for what's going on in this industry. They just happen to as a people, as a region, as a country, some enterprising people swooped in and filled that vacuum that had been in existence for far too long, actually. And you can't blame them. It's like someone had a good idea as far as like the business sense of it goes.
Right.
And one of the doctors responded saying, or his air was, how can you defend? What do you mean that they didn't, or you can't blame them? They that do this, they that do that. And it's like, God, you completely overlook the point. It's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the market, the vacuum that was left because no one was catering to the low cost segment of the market. Turkey came in, boom. That's why they've got well over $1 billion in revenue generated just from people going to Turkey for hair transplants, because they're willing to go super low. They can go super low on the pricing, and that's why it's there. And I'm honestly surprised that something like this didn't happen longer ago, if it wasn't for strip surgery just being so much more difficult and involved than with FUE. But
your points are all well taken. I just can't pay attention to you with what's going on. Do you want to disconnect and reconnect?
Yeah, let's try that.
And I'll talk for a sec. Yeah, so, I mean, guys, call in 888-659-3727. That's 888-659-3727. The reality is, and this is for the doctors who are listening to this program, I believe that there is a huge market left for those who are working here in the United States, where costs are higher, where malpractice insurance is vital, where if you were to lower your price to a certain extent, you would have to actually cut corners, which is not in the best interest of the patient. There are plenty of people who don't want to travel. They want to find really great doctors. And the same goes for Europe, for sure. A relatively small percentage of patients are younger patients, and a relatively small percentage of patients are those who are so, everyone wants to save a couple of bucks, but if you educate them enough to understand that it isn't always in their best interest just to save money, and that there's only a handful of clinics who are offering state-of-the-art surgery at a very low price, and you may not be able to get into these clinics, and it may be a pain in the ass for you, there are plenty of people who would be willing to bite that bullet and say, you know what, I'd rather have a great outcome than have a potential for a poor surgery. Joe's frozen now. And this is what these guys don't get. They're all panicking. Instead of educating consumers about the reality of what they have to offer and why it's probably best to stay in their own backyard in some cases, or to stay in their own country in some cases, they are trying to essentially, I don't know, put out a full onslaught, a complete attack of negative social proof, which only backfires. It's one of the dumbest plans you can possibly, especially in today's world. My whole thing is like, provide people with value. That's what they want. Give them information. Educate them. They make them feel comfortable coming to you for the doctors who are listening. That's it. It's as easy as that. And they're going to be willing to spend what they perceive as what the value should be. If it's of any value to them, then it's definitely not an exaggerated expense. 888-659-3727. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Hey, Spencer, what's up? It's Dr. Charles.
Hey, Dr. Charles, how are you, man?
Not bad. How are you?
I'm okay. Nice to hear from you. So have you been listening to what we've been talking about?
The last couple minutes, yes. And I agree wholeheartedly that here in the States and in some of the biggest cities in Europe, the costs are just much more expensive to do the procedures, and it runs all the way from rent to technicians to medical supplies. So the costs are higher, and if the costs are much lower, there's most likely going to be a reason why, and there's going to be a lessening of the results.
Right. And there's going to be a lot of corners cut. There's going to be, exactly. Whether it's even simple things like using better holding solutions, hiring an extra tech that you may need for, to avoid, tech
right.
fatigue.
I mean, and I'll tell you, that's a big one, because a lot of clinics, even though that do well here in the States and probably have the money, still looking to make higher profits, cutting back corners and using less technicians. And because I get a lot of patients who have had surgery somewhere else first,
right,
at one point, and they've either moved or they weren't happy, or for one reason or another they decided to look around somewhere else. That's not necessarily to say that their first doctor was bad, but in some cases they didn't get the results. Some cases maybe they just live too far away now, or whatever the reason. And when they come to my clinic and I have 5 technicians or 6, they say, God, in my last surgery there was two people there.
Yeah,
there's nobody there. And they're wondering why they're there until 8 or 9 o'clock at night.
But these are all you're making this point, okay, and this could be the first time that people are hearing this. But you never hear this type of information coming from, and I'm going to say it, I say this all the time, from the ISHRS. All they do is talk about and promote negative social proof. A simple concept like this, the importance of having the right number of staff in order to perform truly state-of-the-art surgical hair restoration, to perform it to the best possible degree. Getting that into the minds of the consumer.
I mean, I think there's an adequate number. There could be an overkill. I mean, there's a couple of different ways to look at it. There's no magical number, because also part of it does also have to do with how the quality is of each technician.
That's
that
right.
Can make a difference also.
Absolutely.
So the pure number is not necessarily a definitive number on how many is the proper number for a specific size case, but I certainly think that being well-staffed and having adequate staff makes a big difference for time purposes.
Right.
But once those grafts are out of the body, the clock is ticking.
That's right.
This is a direct correlation on the result of the surgery. Not the only correlation. Obviously, there's plenty of other factors involved in how a result comes out. But time out of body for any piece of tissue, body tissue, before it gets reconnected to blood supply, the main factor is time.
Right. Right. And that's huge.
Obviously, there's hydration factors, and there's crushing injury, and there's other factors that do play a role in survival rates. But I don't know anyone who would argue that time isn't the number one factor.
Look, it is a hair transplant surgery is a it's a symphony of what's the word I'm looking for, Joe? It's a symphony of moving parts that make it work.
It's a very good analogy. It's a harmonious symphony. It's a team effort. It's got to be well coordinated, and to get good results, it takes experience and the proper amount of technicians, the right technicians, having the technicians do what they're good at. Because some technicians are better at cutting, some are better at placing, whatever the situation may be. But you got to use your staff to the best of their ability. Also, you don't try and make people do things that they can. It's almost like a football coach. You can either form your game plan around the players you have, or try and make players do your game plan, and they don't have the ability to do your game plan.
That's actually a really good analogy. And I was speaking to Brad Wolf. I interviewed him during the FUE Europe conference in Manchester.
I missed it. I was so bummed. I was literally on my way to the airport, and I got a phone call. It was kind of I'm not going to say a minor. It was a little bit of a family emergency. Everything turned out to be fine, but I could not take the flight.
Okay.
But I could not take the flight.
Yeah.
I mean, I no matter how much I wanted to be there, I was moderating the surgical session. I had a lecture, and I was going to be very involved in the conference itself, not just going to be an observer, but to be participate as faculty. But family still comes first.
100%. But I will tell you this: I'm glad that everything worked out. I learned a lot at that conference, and I learned that and you may be aware of this, but our participation helped to, and John actually said this on the air, and I'll put this out there for public consumption. We actually doubled the numbers of attendees that they had last year to FUE Europe, and that was just with very.
I'm not surprised because of just what's going on right now in our field and the talk and some of the unhappiness with the IHHRS, and maybe looking for other options for education. But I was really looking forward to it because I have to admit, when I go to the conference, the annual IHHRS conference, I look forward to it, and I do learn some things every year. But I think that as much as that is more seeing old friends and seeing people that I haven't seen in a long time.
Right.
But I really felt like this year, this was, first of all, it's all FUE, and there's going to be all lectures that no one's ever heard, but most of us have never heard before.
Right.
New stuff. Innovative stuff. I was really, really looking.
But I mean, it was alive. The place was alive. When I go to an ISHRS conference and you go into the vendors area, it's almost like it's a second thought. This place was, it was alive. We had our booth there, and people were taking pictures, and they wanted to be a part of things, and they wanted to be interviewed, and it was as crowded outside as it was inside. And I never seen anything like that.
I remember seeing photos on Instagram. Photos on Instagram before the interviews even started. This is like the day, or I think it was the first day of the conference where nothing was really going on. People were still kind of filing in, and people were posting Instagram photos of themselves standing next to the booth where the interviews and the broadcast was being performed.
Well, I can tell you this: it was a difficult place to work because the crowd. Also, we had, and I had no idea because I thought we were going to be indoors. We essentially were surrounded by windows, so there was a lot of exterior light. So getting the lighting right, every 5 seconds the lighting would change. So people had like really bad shadows. I mean, the sound was fucked up, whatever it is, but we still made it work.
They do, and it was still. I'm going back now and kind of listening to some of the live broadcasts that they recorded, so I can go back and listen to some of the lectures.
Well, they did. I would say the stuff that was in the stuff that was in the controlled lecture room was really. I mean, it was really high quality.
Outstanding.
Yeah,
but we can go back and watch that.
Yeah, no.
I think you got to pay for it, but I don't care. But having missed it, I absolutely want to go back and try and catch as many of those lectures.
Well, here's the good news: our stuff for the Bald Truth is free, so we're putting that up on Facebook, so you can go to the hair transplant community and watch all the segments. But with all that said, it was like there was like mayhem. It was like there were lines of people that wanted to be interviewed. I recognize that, like you said, people really do want change, and even though they may not be publicly or stating it on the WhatsApp groups and stuff like that, they're contacting me. We had just at the conference, we had 19 people apply at the booth, and I wasn't even prepared for that because we didn't have anything set up for people to apply. I wasn't thinking about that, but people just kept asking, so we set up an iPad. And people just want change. They want something different. So, and I really believe,
and they deserve it. If that's what's requested and that's what people are looking for, and there's something out there, then hey, hopefully, we'll all be part of that. And, I mean, it'd be nice if everyone can join forces and we can get everybody on board with the same thought process at least.
I love that.
We should all be striving for the same thing, which is better results, and get rid of the people who are doing crappy results, and stop these poor patients from being mangled up, and it's just horrible.
Well, I don't know if you said you just listened to the last couple of minutes, but I made a point, and I don't know if you're aware of this. You probably are, but the American Society of Plastic Surgery and ASAPS, the American Society of Aesthetic Plastic Surgery, they started a campaign a few years ago to deal with a real black market where people are actually being killed. And they spent millions of dollars. They had really, some high-powered marketing companies working with them. They got a tremendous amount of press because people are actually dying or being severely disfigured on a regular basis. And we're not talking about in foreign countries. We're talking about, in the U.S. and in Europe. And what happened after spending millions of dollars and actually banding together to try to stop this from through medical societies? Well, what happened was in the last 5 years, the bad market has grown exponentially. It didn't work.
You're kidding me.
Oh, no.
It got worse.
It's worse than ever. The black market in cosmetic surgery is worse than ever. There are more, and I speak to plastic surgeons all the time, they have completely lost control of the field. So, and these are well-organized, well-positioned organizations, one being actually under the umbrella of the ABMS, spending a lot of money. So if the ISHS believes that spending, a couple $100,000 and starting some sort of a black market campaign is going to do anything, they are throwing your money out the window.
Right. It almost seems like it gave these people ideas on how to scam the plastic surgery field.
It did actually. It emboldened them. It completely emboldened them. They found ways to circumvent with the use of semantics, with the use of organizing new types of organizations and meetings. That's just the way that it is, and that's the way that it's going to happen, and it's happening in this industry. In the last year, since October, since the meeting here in Hollywood, that when you came to my place, things have gotten worse. You know how many clinics are popping up in Turkey since then? Over 100. What's happening here? What's happening in Los Angeles? It's insane, and I can't even imagine what's happening. You know what's happening in your town.
Yeah, Florida's getting pretty bad too. Yeah.
So the solution is something different has to be done. That's it.
Yep. I mean, that's why I think a lot of people are actually paying attention. Unfortunately, I don't think any one person has the exact answer on how to fix everything. But banding together and working together is the only chance that we have, because nobody can do it individually.
That's correct. But Joe, what are your thoughts, man?
Well, my thoughts is that it is actually not that difficult.
I didn't want to say that. I wanted you to say that.
Yeah, well, it's.
I mean, to some of the average docs who are out there, I mean, it's not easy to come up with a necessary solution. I'm sure that there is always a solution to certain things.
Well, Doc, first off, I didn't get to say hello when you first came on board because I was dealing with some tech issues. So I'm so glad to hear you calling in, and I hope everything was great with your family issue from the FUE Europe thing.
Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Thank you.
I too couldn't make it. I had something come up, but I was able to send together a presentation for the part of the conference where everyone could watch what I was going to be talking about to begin with. But what you said is it's really important, and I think that I completely understand where you're coming from. No one knows what to do, but we all need to work together. That makes a lot of sense. But at the same time, the part that you got right is that we all need to band together. The other part, it's actually a lot more simple than you may think, and it comes down to a simple message. You figure out what that message is, and that should be something along the lines of, we believe in taking care of you a certain way. This is just very rough, but you come up with a positive message, but one that everyone can share on their own platforms.
But it can't be a contrived message where the physician, sitting in front of a camera talking about what we believe and what should be done and what shouldn't be done. Right. It's about providing consumers with an education, giving them the ability to empower themselves, kind of like the stuff that we do with our Undercover Doc segments, the stuff that we do on this program, the stuff that we're talking about right now. You make consumers privy to conversations that they normally would not be privy to. Instead of telling them what's good and what's bad, that is what gets people's attention. And it would change the field overnight. I'm telling you, Dr. Charles, and I've told your colleagues this, if we band together, if everyone came under the umbrella that we're working with, the American Hair Loss Association, the IHRS, working with the Bald Truth, it would be like a light switch. We would just switch it on, and everything would change. And only a relatively small percentage of the market would still be the black market, as opposed to what it is today, where most of your market is the new normal of hair transplant surgery is a black market, and it's happening in your hometown.
Scary, but true.
Yeah. So, but Joe, Joe and I, we can talk to a blue in the face. What I decided to do this year, especially after this conference, is I saw the possibility. I see the window right there. It's wide open. So I'm going to have to take it. And, I want the ISHRS to come with me. I would love the AB HRS to be involved, but so far they have both refused.
What is it that you're asking them to do?
Just essentially work with us. Instead of throwing money down the drain, spend, $20 to $30 a day as individuals, like you do, Dr. Charles, to be a part of something much bigger, to be a part of something completely separate and apart of their scientific society, but something that is just totally focused on changing this field. And their whole thing is they want their name on the brand. They want the ISHRS to make this change.
They want to be responsible for it, or they'll take the credit for it.
Exactly. And you know what? That would be great if they can do it, but they can't.
And that's one of those things that's who cares who gets the credit for it as long as the right thing gets done?
I don't even give a shit. For me, I don't even give a shit about the credit. I'm just like, listen, it's going to take this. This is what it's going to take in order to have the right amount of people, to have the right staff, to be able to produce enough content. If you're not willing to spend $30 a day, the cost of a cheap lunch, to ensure that people's lives are not put in danger, then you shouldn't be practicing in this industry.
No, I agree.
That's how I feel about it.
All the docs are members of the just the ISHRS pulled that together. That's plenty.
It would be first of all, it would be a massacre. I'll give you an example. I'm sorry, I'm cutting you off. Go ahead, speak.
No, it's that many people giving the same type of message that's more powerful than the money pulled together.
Well, that's the whole point. If it's that's the point. That's the whole point. But it's going to take a little bit of an investment, a tiny bit of an investment, in order for everyone to be able to, for us to pull all the content together that we need, and for us to be able to use all of our third-party resources, which I have a lot that endorse what we do. So it's one third-party resource supporting another third-party resource, supporting another third-party resource, and all supporting a message of truth, of hope.
Have you ever put down or sat down with anyone? I don't know.
Everyone.
I'm not going to throw any names out there.
Nauseam.
Came out with a statement that we think would be an appropriate statement for the public.
It wouldn't be a
and brought that to the IHRS and says, this is what we think we should pull together between the IHRS, ISHRS.
I've spoken to Arthur Tuckerzinski. I've spoken to Arthur Tuckerzinski. I've spoken to Sharon Keene. Sharon Keene is one of the few people that agrees with me 100%, says it should be done. Arthur, all he does is count my money. And I'm like, Arthur, he's like, well, you'll be making this much money. And I'm like, say I was in it just for the money. Say that was the truth of what you're thinking. If we were able to pull this off and I made all this money Why would that be a bad thing? You're changing people's lives. You're helping everyone's practice. You're helping your colleagues. You're saving the field.
Some people are going to profit along the way, but if their intention was really to help people, and that's really what happened, then no one can ever stop that.
Well, not some people. Everyone. Every good doctor who's a part of what we do will profit along the way.
Should. Actually, I agree.
Yeah. And that's what would happen.
And I mean, if you were all about the money, you know how many people you've turned down from being in the IAHS? You don't think you could have accepted many more people and taken their fees? I appreciate you saying that, but my reality is a lot different than a lot of people in the ISHS believe. And my reality is, and I say this honestly, I had planned to retire at the age of 54. I know it sounds weird, but I didn't want to work at 55. I had this in my mind, and everything was set with my financial advisor, and it was done, completely done, ready to roll. I just turned 54 in May. But you're only 44, so you got another 10 years anyway.
Thank you. But so I turned 54 in May, and I'm talking to Joe Tillman, and he's like, dude, you can't leave. This is why. And, we really have to move forward on this. And, and he was showing me what was happening on YouTube.
Now it's you started a kind of a project and a goal, and now it's more about finishing something that you started and seeing something really good come of it and being proud of that.
That's how I feel about it. That's exactly how I feel about it. But listen, Dr. Charles, you've always supported what we've done, and you've always supported our message, and that's why I think, and I love when you call the program, I think patients who listen to the show need to know that, yeah, you're a great doctor. You're good at what you do. That's very important, but it goes well beyond that. You support our message, and you've been supporting this message for 20 years. And that doesn't fall, that doesn't fall on, what's the word? I was going to say deaf ears.
I still feel like I've fallen short because I feel like I haven't done enough. But that's why it's almost frustrating for me because I wish there was more that I could do directly to change things.
Well, I can tell you this: just supporting the IHS and being a part of what we do, you've given people the opportunity to find a platform that, in many cases, have saved lives. And as many people as you help in your practice, working with us has helped countless more than you could ever imagine. And that's what I try to tell everyone. That's what I try to tell the naysayers at the ISHRS, that, you know what? Yeah, I had to separate the good doctors from the not-so-great doctors, but a lot of you guys have caught up now. More of you guys could be involved with what we do. We're starting kind of an associate membership program that if you just want to support our cause, you are in the position to do that. So let's do it. And these guys they're stubborn as fuck. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of hoping that with the new board that's in there now, that things would maybe change a little bit and kind of get away from the good old boy thing.
The board has no power. There's one person that has power in the ISHRS. That's it. And it's a layman. And a couple of attorneys who, sadly, in my view, this is just my opinion, have not done the ISHRS a tremendous service over the years.
They're giving bad advice.
I could state, I would give different advice, and there's advice, and there's stuff that's been information that's been provided to me that just seems very questionable as far as the direction that you guys think you need to go into, the limitations that you have, concerns about, things that you guys don't need to be concerned about. Basically, your legal counsel and I believe some of the laymen involved in the organization have rendered you guys impotent, and that's just my opinion. I can't say for sure.
Right. Well, doesn't have their opinion, and I don't know, really the ins and outs of what's going on behind the board. Most people would assume that the board has all the control, the president, and down from there. But
Arthur Tykosinski has absolutely zero power. None.
I'm just saying most members don't know that.
Yeah.
Most members have no idea. They just assume that the president's, the top four, the president, the vice president, the secretary and treasurer, and the board of governors, however many, 10 or 12, whatever that is probably making all the decisions.
Anytime there's something that's left to a vote.
No one is entered as a layman or non-physicians or attorneys that are making any kind of decisions. I never knew that.
I can tell you this, that if I had an actual scientific society, a medical society that was supposed to be run by physicians, I don't know if I would have a layman as an executive director. That's just my opinion. Now, for my organization, that's a different story. I'm a consumer-based organization. Really, physicians should just act as advisors, and that's what they do. But in your case, there's no way. That's insanity. Now, again, that's just my opinion. But
again, I realize I really say your opinion, and there might be more than one way to look at it, and maybe having some outside people part of it as an objective view of things is not a bad idea. But it depends on how much power you're giving that person. But having them as an advisor, just to listen to an outside opinion, that's never a bad idea.
Unless somebody has a legal background, unless somebody is a really well-established entrepreneur outside of this field who has experience in other businesses that may be similar, those are good advisors. But anybody that's come up in this field that was kind of just given a position, yeah. I mean, you're dealing with a broken culture. That's all I'm going to say.
Right. Yeah, well, we're all hoping that things can turn around. I really think that I get the feeling.
You're breaking up, Doc. Say it again.
I said this to the doctors who I've spoken to who are at the FUE Europe conference. It's very positive that maybe there are enough doctors that are going to start banding together, and we might be able to make a difference.
Well, listen, I hope so. We're here to help to make that happen and to facilitate that. Joe has been doing a tremendous job as well. And there's a lot of opportunity for those who do want to band together. And there's not much that they have to do except just, utilize their web resources, provide content that we could help to provide, that we would actually put together, and just sit back and watch it work.
And the question I have is, you mentioned something that, that we need to provide some type of statement or approach and maybe a small amount of monetary input, which is fine. But how does it, until we all do it together, those numbers are only small numbers if we all band together.
Correct.
To try and do that on an individual basis, the cost would be too much for each individual doctor.
Well, that's the thing. We don't have to. Essentially, you're already doing it, Doc. You're already doing it. If other guys were willing to do what you've done for the last 20 years, and if everyone band together to do what you have done for the last 20 years, the one thing that doctors have, and they take this in the spirit that's meant, everyone thinks there has to be like a name of a campaign, a very specific statement put out there, as opposed to providing content, a continuity of content that just empowers consumers. And that can be 30 or 40 different segments and clips and messages. And,
Well, I feel like I definitely do that because I'm constantly online just trying to answer really common questions and give people advice on how to shop for clinics, not necessarily how to get to my clinic, but for people in all areas of the world, what to look for.
And if everyone shared that from the same third party, that it was then endorsed by another third party, that's mainstream, and everyone shared the same faces, the same content.
Right.
Everyone will see it.
Spread like wildfire. Then it starts to spread.
Absolutely.
It spreads like wildfire. It suddenly becomes the gospel.
The gospel.
It's interesting, Doc. I was in this WhatsApp group. I was talking about the example of the video I made about celebrity hairline disasters, the Kyle Christie effect, where I'm talking about the importance of using microscopes, which is a very basic fundamental of FUT from 20 years ago that is not being done today in the majority of clinics that have opened in the past 5 years. Almost all of them past 5 years aren't using microscopes. And so I'm talking about this. I'm talking about the basic fundamentals for proper and natural hairline design, just like you learned, when you were first starting in this. It's not being done today. And I created this video.
At this point, you think that would be like hair transplants 101.
Well, it's
like basic.
It's even more simplistic than that. It's just common sense as far as I'm concerned. Right. But you've got, I've deemed the modern FUE procedure mini micrografting 2.0 because that's exactly what it is. when you've got these clinics that don't know, how to use microscopes, or even that microscopes are integral part of this process. Procedures being performed right now as we're talking, the final result will have a hairline full of 2, 3, and even 4 hair grafts. It's crazy
to see that.
It's a vile twisting of this procedure. But point is I made this video. It's got almost 400,000 views just from my YouTube channel. Imagine if the same video were being shared by 100 clinic websites saying this is how we think that hairline should be done. This is how we think the basic fundamentals of hairline design are incorporated. Can you imagine? Like I see on different social media outlets where people are talking now, like consumers, patients are talking about the use of microscopes. They're talking about single hair grafts, and I can tell from the way that they're writing this, it's because they saw the video. It's not because they dove into. It's not because they dove into Internet archives from 10 years ago when this was common sense. It's because they're seeing the video. So imagine if that was spread over just 100 websites. That is such a small number of websites in this industry. Just 100 people saying, yeah, this makes sense. This is what we do. Just imagine. I mean, the number of views is secondary. It's the message. It's how it gets drilled in.
Essentially, it's just continuity of message. It's called written in stone. I'll give you another example. And I talked about this during my talk, but I think people were kind of lost. They didn't really understand why I was speaking about this. But there's not a given day when the American Hair Loss Association is not referenced by the mainstream media or in the blogosphere. So if you Google American Hair Loss Association in Google News, every day, day after day after day after day, we are referenced. 2/3 of men by the age of 35 suffer with some degree of hair loss. 40% of hair loss sufferers are women. Whatever the reference is, whether someone's selling a product, whether someone's doing, whether it's a company that's talking about the size of the market, whether it's local news talking about a local doctor, they all reference the American Hair Loss Association. There's never been another organization in this field that has gotten that much press without ever sending out or having to send out a press release. And it's every day. And I showed an example of Google News that was, I took a screenshot the day before. And this was in Europe. And it was like 3 on one day, 2 on the other. And we're talking about ABC, CBS, CNN. Imagine if we were able to use that leverage that we already have to get the message out about surgical hair restoration. And then you guys can say, according to CNN, according to ABC News, according to WebMD, blah, 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 on your own websites.
Right.
That's it.
That makes a lot of sense. And also, I think would force the clinics who are not up to par to either get on par or get out of the business.
Well, what do you think happened in 1998 when I came out? We talked all about that, and actually John Cole brought that up during the talk, that I came out of nowhere, and it was shocking to people. It was a much smaller industry, and you know what? People came to the table. There was a time Bosley refused to use microscopes. Within a few years, they did. Within 2 years, the majority of the industry had changed. We can do the same thing.
I mean, it puts pressure on a lot of these, underachieving clinics and clinics that really probably are doing the procedure when they shouldn't be, or don't have the qualified doctor and or staff.
And also, a lot of people will quit. You know why they'll quit?
Right,
because
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
they either get out of the business and realize, like you get these plastic surgeons, for example, and this is I'm not saying, I would never say any names.
Yeah.
But, who just recently added hair transplants to their long list of surgical procedures that they do, because one of the reps, the machine reps said, "Don't worry, we'll take care of it." We're in the reps, the whole thing. We can bring an extra $50,000 a month into your clinic. You only need to do 4 cases. This is what these people hear, and the numbers sound great. It sounds like a very small number of cases. We'll help you advertise. We'll give you all the marketing materials you need. And don't worry, don't even worry that you don't know how to do hair transplants. This is what they're telling the doctors.
Well, that's exactly what they tell doctors, and I've seen some stuff in writing, and I've spoken to several plastic surgeons. One guy the other day, and then we're going to have to take another call in a second, but one guy the other day, this was about 3 months ago, I'm sitting at the Peninsula Hotel, and I told the story, and this is a board-certified plastic surgeon who purchased one of these devices, and we're a couple of drinks in, and I happen to know this guy, and he's like, "Look, Spence, These other guys can't compete with me. I'm a board-certified plastic surgeon. And the reality is he does have the credentials. He does have the street cred. He does have a 7-year surgical residency. He is a real surgeon, in the eyes of the consumer. He's able to show different credentials. Doesn't mean he could do a hair transplant worth shit. But that's the way these guys think. But with that said, they're also used to spending $50,000 or $100,000, on a piece of equipment. And then when something new comes out, that old piece of equipment collects dust in their back room. So they have no problem making that investment. It's not the end of the world for them to kind of give it up once they realize, hey, this is harder than I thought.
Right. That's true, too. True, too. But you'll be surprised how there's some local docs down here in a similar situation to that, and they're putting out some really bad results, and they're still doing it. And I don't know how they sleep at night. I don't know how they can have a surgical procedure going on in their office where they have nothing to do with.
Well, I agree with that, but how do you think some of your colleagues slept at night? Some of the old boys, some people that you may or may not even be, friends with once a year when you hang out with them. They were doing some really bad work back in the day for a long time. And they were involved in it. They were actually doing it, and they were fucking people up. How did they sleep at night?
I guess that's even worse.
Yeah.
I guess that's even worse.
So
I couldn't think of anything off the bat that was worse, but you just found something. Yeah.
So listen, Dr. Charles, I want to thank you for taking the time. It was a great conversation. There are people who get it. We are going to make some changes. I just wish it wasn't such. It wasn't so difficult for the powers that be at your scientific organization, which could really thrive and continue to grow, if only they kind of stuck to their wheelhouse, and allowed other people, to be part of their space.
Right. I mean, it's like some people. It's almost like some people. It's like almost like a person. Some people just have a really hard time accepting help from anybody. They have to do everything themselves, even though there might be someone more qualified, or just help them. Contribute. Let's even say, not even help. Contribute. Be part of something.
Well, I'm going to give you one last example before we leave. We're talking about Joe was talking about the videos. We were sitting, and Joe, you remember this. We were in the meeting of the executive committee here in Los Angeles at Bosley. And I was talking about my undercover tech segments and some of my other segments that can be used and shared by physicians. And some of the doctors were like, they were interested in it. And then I think it was Victoria Say who said, well, why don't we just put together maybe a unbranded PSA? And I said, first of all, even if it was the greatest PSA in the world, if it's unbranded, it has no credibility. So I'd rather see the ISHRS brand something. It's got to have some sort of a brand. But why do you need to take the brand off of it if it's a good message? Whether it's my brand or it's your brand.
Right. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
That's the mentality.
Yep.
So, all right, Doc, listen.
All right, well, listen, I appreciate you having me on. I will continue to call in. I enjoy the conversation, and you know that you have my full support, and
I know that,
many other doctors.
And you have my support as well, as you know. And
I do know that.
Yeah, and I just want our listeners to know, if you're just tuning in, we're speaking to Dr. Glenn Charles. You can find Dr. Charles through the IHRS website at iahrs.org. And I know that you do. I mean, you're doing online consultations, and are you doing anything with topical finasteride now?
Topical finasteride, I mean, I have a compounding pharmacy locally, but it's still, to me, I'm still kind of waiting. For some more data. I mean, I do have some patients that are using it, but am I using it on every patient? No.
Well, I think that's fair. I like hearing that. So a lot of people are jumping on it, and we're not exactly sure what the exact formulation needs to be, who's getting the best results with what.
The delivery system too is how is it getting into the scalp? What are you mixing it with?
Absolutely.
Because you can put a lot of stuff on the skin, but it's all about the absorption. If you're getting just a tiny bit of absorption, it's probably not going to make any difference anyways.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's finances and people spending money on stuff that's not really doing anything. So I take all that into consideration.
Well,
I do keep an open mind.
You're an honest guy,
man. This stuff really works. Hey, I'll be all glad to prescribe it to people. But I just kind of like to wait for a little more data before I can, really tell patients. And then there's other things that patients ask me that don't have a lot of data either, and I'll tell them. I said, listen, there's not a lot of data. For example, I'm not this specific like PRP or laser. I mean, there's data, but it's controversial. But I think a lot of the stuff is, probably not going to hurt you. It does help some people, and for some people, it probably doesn't do as much for other people.
Well,
but
I mean, I have to say that
this is what it costs.
Even saying that really provides, I think, people a lot of confidence that you're a person of integrity. So I appreciate that. Listen, Dr. Glenn Charles.
Hey, listen, you guys have a great night, and I'll call back again soon.
All right, you take care of yourself.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks for calling in.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Guys, I'm sorry I had you on hold so long, but it's always great to hear a doctor who really gets it and who gives a shit about patients and who really cares about this field. Think I was too harsh, Joe?
No, okay. I don't think so at all.
Just being honest.
Well, what else are you going to be in this industry? It's like, if you're not being honest, if we're not being honest, then who the hell will be?
Nobody. Nobody, because everyone's afraid to. And you know what? These guys are speaking through us, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
They're willing to come out and talk, and that's important. 888-659-3727. Hey, man, you're on the air. Who's this, and where are you calling from?
You goddamn motherfuckers. You fucking wolves in here, you think you know everything, don't you? What's up?
What's up, Nico?
What's up, man?
How are you, man? I love it.
Yeah, it's good.
It fits, right?
Yeah. So what's happening?
It was just occurred to me as Dr. Charles spoke. It's like, shouldn't doctors and, the business be thinking a little bit more like a reflective practitioner? Like when I was teaching, we used to have to assess the kids that, that we were working with to see if they were meeting certain levels, certain standards, but to really inform our own teaching. So it seems like hair transplant physicians to be really almost creating like their own rubric for their patients, or for themselves rather, to see if they're, I don't know, it would take time, but it seems like they need to be a little bit more reflective in how they practice and if they're meeting certain standards for themselves, but also if their patients met certain, goals. It just seems like you come in and hopefully, it's like, you guys have been saying, it's like you hope for the best and there are no guarantees, but there's something that needs to be done a little bit more, it seems. I don't know.
Well, I don't know if I know you follow me on Instagram, and, I put up one segment with Dr. Scott Alexander where I essentially said, what amazes me is it's hard to believe the sheer number of sociopaths that found one field.
Yeah, right.
In my view.
Yeah.
I mean, how is that even fucking possible? They all just were attracted to this. They were like, wait a second. We know how to take advantage of people. That's what we do. Yeah. This is perfect for us.
The perfect crime.
Even the good docs, though, and knowing everyone's got a track record of a couple of fuck-ups or whatever, should still be taking the time to sort of scale their work for each patient. It's 100%. Totally unrealistic. You know what I mean? It's like there should be more done as far as that reflective practitioner model. Not to get all.
I do know of at least one doctor that hired some sort of psychologist to come up with a questionnaire to really investigate beforehand. Like the patient had to fill it out at the initial, like before they even got into any sort of position where they could talk to the doctor. They had to fill out this form, and a score would be arrived at based on their answers, multiple choice, and that would determine their mental fortitude to go through with a hair transplant.
My first question would be, if I was a physician, have you ever registered or read an online hair transplant message forum? And if so, which ones? And that would probably be a determining factor whether or not to operate on the guy.
Yeah. Well, I think actually, no, I remember my forum had that question about if I was a member of any forum. That's interesting that you said that. That's really weird.
Well, a lot of these guys probably do it just to see if they're getting leads from forums.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
The reality is, it would be like You know, if you check yes, please leave the facility. That would be it.
Yeah, but they'll have, like, a lot of them will have that part of the form where they say, how did you hear about us? And they'll have the option of different forums or different, you know, this, that, or the other. But some will actually ask you if you're a member of one of these forums. And the reason why they do that, there's a couple reasons why they're doing this. As far as the first question, they're looking to see where their advertising dollars are going, but they're also looking to see if you're fairly educated, or if you're just like straight in off the street, suddenly decided that you want to have more hair and you have nothing, no clue about how it's done. So this is part of a process of, in sales it's called qualifying the lead, but in medicine it's basically qualifying the patient. And so the decent clinics on up will have these kinds of questions just to get an idea of what your background is as far as, you know, your understanding of the procedure, your motivation for having the procedure. And I got to tell you, man, after all my years talking to people, you know, while I appreciated the form, I could tell within just a couple of minutes if like he could have all the physically characteristics are A+ across the board, but I got to the point I could get a feeling this guy, no, he's not there yet, and he's shaky on something. It could be something really small, but it would be a red flag for me, where I didn't think that it would be beneficial for the patient, because, you know, I've seen too many cases where a patient is A+ across the board, great donor hair, minimal hair loss. You know, they're not 18 years old. They're, you know, maybe mid-30s. Not a strong history of loss in the family, you know, just minor loss. So, you know, and they're still taking medication, just A+ across the board. And great result. Like, anyone that looks at it looking for a hair transplant, if they saw the photo, they'd be like, wow, that's fantastic. Most people would be like, wow, that's fantastic. But I knew that, I knew that they would look at it and be like, no, this isn't what I bargained for. And I've seen those cases actually manifest like that, where everything was A+, the result was A+, but the patient wasn't happy. And it's because there's something deeper in some people beyond just the aesthetic. They're looking for the aesthetic correction to fix something else in their lives. And that is the last reason to get a hair transplant.
It sounds like every relationship I've ever been in, except for one. Except for one, common law.
Hello.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, man, I still was accepted without being on thin before. I mean, my shit was so weird. I'm still fascinated. And for sure, if I had been more closely, there was just such a disconnect between inside that practice I went to, where it was just like, the day of the surgery, it should have been like, oh, check all the boxes. I mean, not just the ones Joe was saying about they're all together, but it's like, oh, right, currently taking Finasteride, check, before even starting the fucking surgery. Like, I even think more and more back to the day I was in, and he felt the top of my scalp. He's like, oh, your scalp feels a little funny. And I'm like, oh, but that didn't occur to me what that might mean or anything. And he would just proceeded. There were so many things missed besides the Klonopin bit, besides not being on fin. He touched my scalp. He's like, oh, your scalp has a weird texture. It's like, what the fuck? You know, I don't mean to harp on it over and over, but that's my experience.
But that's important. I mean, that's a very telling situation right there. It's like, wait a second.
Yeah.
You know, like, it doesn't matter who the doctor is. It doesn't matter if he's IHRS, non-IHRS. If a doctor is questioning anything, they need to step back and say, you know what, maybe we need to take a biopsy of your scalp. You know, maybe we shouldn't perform. Maybe we, if you don't mind, we have to take the day off today. Yeah. And we're going to send.
I would have fucked up the, the down payment or whatever. Just I would have like, all right, fine. If it's not going to work out, then I'll come back another time if you guys want to check all the boxes first to make sure everything's in place. It's like, that shit seems so simple. And it's like, this is great guy, very nice guy, but that means nothing to me now. I used to feel badly for having to talk shit about, like, the shit that went wrong, but it's like, this is my life. It's like, it really got fucked. And not to be a defeatist, fucking anxious piece of shit, like, I you know,
You
portray
don't sound
sometimes,
like
but
one.
it
You don't sound like one.
pisses me off. It's fucking infuriating. It's like, how is that shit missed? But I saw a YouTube video of a doctor doing a transplant and doing a biopsy at the same time. I'm like, well, why would you do that? I don't know. Weird shit.
It's again, I repeat this all the time, but, you know, it's called the practice of medicine. Everyone practices differently. And, you know, sadly, sometimes it takes an experience like yours to better inform people, and even me. You know, I mean, there are things that I would never know if it wasn't for patients like you coming here and telling your experiences.
Bullshit.
You know?
I hate being an example, unfortunately. Sucks. I'm happy to help everyone else, but I'm just so...
No, listen. I mean,
deal,
I get it. What can I tell you? I mean, it sucks. It fucking sucks, and I'm sorry that you went through and you're still going through what you're going through. And my hope is that one day you'll be able to call this program and say, you know, it was a tough fucking road, but I made it through the other side.
Yeah. No, I'm trying to stay positive and hopefully figure shit out, but pissed off. So while I have you, so you can grab another call, is Joe had asked actually in the chat, can you think of any other doctors? I know Dr. Wong does and Dr. Bernstein does use staples for strip or strip revision.
See, Shapiro Medical uses staples, I believe. I know they did a while ago. I think they still do. Who else? Trying to think. Dr. Gable, I believe, does. I could be wrong. You have to confirm that with him.
I'm pretty sure Dr. Gable does, but you can confirm it with him, sure.
And so why don't many do it? I don't get it. If it helps prevent tight closures, why is there so few that
they're not taught to? They're not taught to in their residencies. They're taught how to do sutures, right? I mean, staples are indicated for some specialities like sports medicine. You'll see like knee issues taken care of with staples instead of sutures. But it's in my position on it now, it's like I don't really have that much of a preference. I think that, you know, I was exposed to staples for a long time, and the logic behind it makes sense. But I think that it depends on the tension that you're dealing with and how the surgeon has dealt with any sort of tension that they're trying to address to begin with. And any type of scenario where you've got high tension, and if you're using sutures or staples, you still have tension on the connecting point where the skin that's under tension meets the force that's holding it back. So whether it's a suture or a staple, it's still the same effect. Stainless steel staples are non-reactive because they're stainless steel, but sutures are non-reactive because of the nylon that they use for them as well. So the problem with sutures, in my view, is there's an inconsistent amount of tension put on the closure itself. So with staples, there's a bit more consistency from the first staple to the 150th staple, whereas with sutures, it might not be the case. There might be a little bit more of a gap between the wound and the edge where the suture is inserted and it comes out the exit. But the advantage to that is you can adjust the variability for the width, the amount of tissue that's being kind of bound up and pulled together. So there are actually advantages and disadvantages to both. Ultimately, it comes down to, what do I always say? The hand that wields the tool. So you gotta find someone that is known for doing good scar work, or there's a reputation out there that you can latch onto and do some research and talk to them about it. And I think that in cases like yours, where you're looking for scar revision, the number one question you need to be asking is, can you show me examples of scar revision before and after that are clear, where it's obvious that there's an improvement, and how many can you share with me? Don't go to forums and look up cases like that. Just contact clinics that you're interested in. Say, this is what my issue is. I mean, they might make you go through a consultation, which you should, and just say, look, you guys, you're saying the right things, and I appreciate that, but I was told the right things before. I want to see proof. Seriously, I mean that's and even if you touch on some sensitivities by having that approach, that's their problem, not yours.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, don't be an asshole about it, but be firm and be and stand strong, right? It's like, look, I appreciate that you're having trouble with it, but I need to feel comfortable with it, and because of my own experience, and I'm sure you could understand that.
I would have just done, I would just do FUE into the scar, but it's because it hurts like a motherfucker. I got to get it revised. I guess my other question, so you guys can take off, is what's the longest you ever heard of telogen effluvium lasting? I know it's what the typical length could be, but have you ever heard of a very long case of it? Chronic otherwise? Or otherwise, I mean.
Joe, do you want me to answer that?
Please do. Sorry, I got distracted.
Okay. I've actually heard that there has been, and this is very questionable to me. There are some people who state, and mostly dermatologists, that there are cases of chronic telogen effluvium. And what does that mean? People continue to lose their hair until they go bald. So they call it chronic telogen effluvium. It's just, some people just go through a long-lasting chronic shed until they get to the point where it either just stops or it stops at a point where they are significantly dealing with living life with less hair. I don't believe in chronic. I don't believe that's a thing. The very definition of telogen effluvium should be temporary. It should be a temporary form of hair loss caused by trauma of some sort.
Okay. All right, boys. Let me let you go, and I really appreciate the talking time. To be continued.
Nico, we appreciate it. Next time, there's a great line from Taxi Driver, if you could find it. It talks about the scum and the thieves and the...
Oh, yeah. And let the rain wash it all away, right?
Yeah. Get that one. All right, man.
I've seen it a million times. All right, boys. Thanks so much.
Take care. All right. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.
Phone number is 888-659-3727. We are live. We will be live for about 25 more minutes if you want to give us a call. We do have lines open. And Joe just recently had his 10th hair transplant. Opportunity opened up. He decided to go for it. And Joe, I have to say the way that you've been documenting your case has been, you've always done it in a very groundbreaking way. But now you have new tools and resources, platforms to get your information out there in different ways that don't necessarily have to be as formal as they once were. And I really liked the video that you put out the other day with the lovely, I don't want to give it the lovely, what do you call her?
Mail order.
Yeah.
The Russian mail order bride. Yeah. No, thanks. It was extremely impromptu. And I got to tell you, I think I actually put out the first hair transplant result video back in, is like a, I guess you'd say like a selfie video back in 2005 or 2006. It's on my channel. And, I got to say that even with all the advancements we have, the tools and the software, it's still actually difficult for me to just crank that stuff out. And I've got footage I shot between, like, tomorrow will be 1 week post-op for my FUE with Dr. Wong and his team. And I've got all this footage I shot, but I've not been able to crank out, segments of updates and stuff because it takes time. And of course I got other things I'm doing, but it's, so to segue into what you mentioned, the wife and I were at the beach on Sunday. I think it was Sunday. Was it Sunday? Yeah, it was Sunday. And we're just sitting on a bench, just enjoying the sunset. And it was kind of breezy and it was nice out. And it's like, why not do a live stream? It's great lighting. And so I pulled out the iPhone and just did a live stream. It's still on my here on my YouTube channel, and fielded some questions and showed what the donor area was looking like 5 days or 4 days after the procedure. And It got good response. It's getting good views for just a short, I think it was like maybe a 4 or 5 minute, not even 5 minutes, like a 4-minute live stream. And I'm going to try to do more of that in the future as things progress. But I like the idea of having more of a structured presentation because it's easier to find and easier to, I think, to dive into because there's, there's production value, which I like to put in there. But so far, the recovery is going really well. I'm 6 days post-op. I'll be 7 days tomorrow. And I'll do a quick spin around so you can see what it looks like. I don't know how the clarity is.
Guys, hold on. We will take your calls in a second.
I think I got bruising here on this side. I got bruising here on my right side, right there. And then the back.
Yeah, I mean, that's fucking incredible, dude.
Where only 100 grafts, double hair grafts were put into the occipital donor area. It's not going to make it disappear, but it's going to make it less visible at this extremely short hair length. And here's the other side. So what I've decided is I really like this haircut, but at the same time, I'm debating shaving it because some of my other video projects, I don't know if, you tell me, Spencer, is this a distraction for doing, because I got a new doctor I need to introduce in video. Should I shave it for that introduction or just keep it like this?
I don't think it's a distraction.
No? Okay.
No, I think it's just the way you look.
Of course, the benefit to shaving the rest off, it would be good YouTubing because I would do it live on a live stream. But secondly, it would give me a great opportunity to show before and after the top of my scalp with close-ups in 4K Ultra HD, so I could better explain the reason why lower density transplants compared to native hair, even though native hair might be diffuse thinning, why a transplant will have a stronger appearance because of terminal hair versus miniaturized hair.
Right.
And I tried to do that once before with photos, but it didn't turn out very well. But I think that it would be a great opportunity to explain the realities of density for someone like myself. Like the density on top of my scalp, it's good, but it's not anywhere near native. But if you compare the top of my head to someone that has diffused loss over the same area, they actually can have double the density, if not more, of what I have. It's just all the hair is miniaturized. So the point of that is, this goes back to why a lot of people shouldn't have a hair transplant before they try Finasteride or before they try PRP, because if those hairs thicken up, it would be far better than anything you can get from a hair transplant. And I think that, I don't know, there's a potential that I'm going to do it anyway, just so I can show the comparison of density on this kind of scalp or this kind of situation. I think it would be a valuable lesson.
Well, we all look forward to that, Joe.
if I do it.
Guys, 888-659-3727. I'm going to take your calls in a second, but just to get to Joe's point about the difficulties of getting content out there, I've been promising you guys content forever. We have so much content, it's insane. I spoke to a millennial today at length, and I used the term millennial with complete endearment and love for the fact that, these people grew up in this world, and now the new generation. And they kind of understand how to do things in a very quick and effective fashion with, even if they don't necessarily, my whole thing is, to cut up my content and to put it out there, you need to know what you're talking about in this field. But as I tested this millennial out and sent a couple of videos to this person, they were able to make an assessment of what was of value within 20-second and 2-minute segments.
Interesting.
And if I could get this done, we will be able to put out content consistently everywhere on every platform. And what I've decided to do is just go backwards. Why make my life more difficult? No one gives a shit if something came from 3 or 4 years ago. There's no timeline on this stuff. It's just all good content. So if I start with today's show and just go backwards, what's the difference?
I don't think there is.
Well, we have thousands of hours of content. It's time to, I guess, break the internet with our hair loss content, if that's possible. This one person believes that it is, and actually wants to do it initially on an interning basis, willing to prove that they can make this happen without charging. So it may be exciting, or it could be bullshit. We will see.
I like it.
Let's take a call. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this, and where are you calling from?
This is Bald Spot Barry, Denver, Colorado.
Bald Spot Barry.
Bald Spot, how's it going?
What's happening, man? You're breaking up a little bit.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sitting in my garage.
It's possible it's my phone line. I don't know. Glenn Charles wasn't great either, but I mean, he was great, but his call wasn't great. So what's happening?
Oh, man, just got home and listened to your show after a little bit of my...
Oh, shit. Hold on.
Just thought I'd give you all a call. I wanted to share what one of my favorite moments was on The Bald Truth. As I said before, I've listened to every Bald Truth from 2015 till now.
I'm so sorry.
And,
wow.
And so there was a moment where we're having your typical technical difficulties, and Joe was talking on a point, and Spencer, you tried to pin in this point. You had something to say, and but Joe couldn't hear you. He couldn't hear whatever you were saying, so Joe just continues on with his point, continues to answer this question, and Spence, you start waving your hands at the camera and going, Joe, whoa, Joe.
I vaguely remember that, yeah.
And Joe just keeps on finishing his point, man. I thought that was one of the funniest moments because Joe just got to finish his thought.
Well, what's actually funnier is that Joe was having no technical difficulties. He just chose to ignore me.
And Barry, nothing can stop the truth from getting out there.
Not even me.
Not even Spencer. Unless he decides to flip a switch and then we're off the air.
Yeah, it all ends.
It all ends. So what's new with you, man? How you been? What's going on? What's shaking? What's new?
Oh, man, what's new? I've been growing my hair out. I was a head shaver for the past almost 10 years. And I've been growing because I document my process with Finasteride and be able to see improvements. And I remember why I keep my hair short now. It's because I have really curly hair, and it's starting to kind of flip up on the sides, where the bozo ring is. It's kind of starting to...
Oh, I know the bozo ring well. I'm actually due for a haircut, and I had to plaster this shit down today, like the sides. It's like, otherwise it's just like this poof of hair, man.
Yeah, I don't want to have to go with hairspray.
Oh yeah, well, you know what? I've been stuck with that and breathing that shit in for the last 30 years. So
I hate it. Hate my long hair.
Barry, I want to speak to you. You're a great call, but you're really breaking up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me step outside to see if it gets any better.
All right.
Is that any better?
It is better.
Wow.
Okay.
There you go.
I'll just stand out in front of my house and that's fine.
All right. Tell your wife I'm sorry.
I hate my hair being long, though. I hate seeing the baldness.
Well, I am the opposite because when my hair is too short, you can see the baldness. Like, it's funny. I was watching some, and I'm going to put them out for public consumption. Right now, I've just been putting it on the private Facebook group. But I have some interviews in different lighting, some bad light, some really bad lighting, and some good lighting. And you can kind of see my hair close up. I got to tell you, with the paint, my part line looks better than some, people who have full heads of hair.
It is. I've said it on the air. I'll say it again. Spencer is a magician. When it comes to what he does with
I don't know
hair.
if I should feel good or bad about that.
Like in real life, he actually has like 15 hairs, and this is what you see on camera.
I'm like Charlie Brown.
The rest of it is various sprays.
It's sprays, and I'll glue a little bit in the back, and whatever it takes. Whatever it takes.
I saw Joe asking Dr. Wong about his part line, the other day in his video. Man, doctor, what do you think about my part line?
No, I put a little extra paint, but I did it very. You have to understand. I was in a hotel room in the UK. First of all, this is a fucked up thing about, I guess, Europe in general, but definitely in the UK, is there are no outlets in the bathroom. They use, what is it, 240 volts, Joe? Is that what they use? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So there's no outlets you cannot blow dry your hair or use any type of a electrical device in a bathroom. So I'm like, how the fuck am I going to do this? So I had to sit at this really bizarre angle in this mirror trying to blow dry my hair and then figure out how to paint it. It was very stressful, but I made it happen. And I decided to put a little bit extra in the part line for these interviews because I knew the lighting we were sitting in front of windows, plus there was heavy lighting. It was going to be much more direct and it's something that you cannot control like a regular studio. So I was like, all right, it may be see-through. I got to tell you, Joe, I fucking killed it. Fucking killed it. It looks dense. I mean, you can see certain angles when I put my head down. It's a little thin. But for the most part, it really was a work of art. And what I was noticing is the people who you didn't think had any hair loss, they have hair loss.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Can you imagine what the maid thought when she walked into that motel room or hotel room and looked at the desk and said, "What the fuck is this?" Or
forget
all over the fucking place.
Forget about that. What about the tiny little fucking bottles from the minibar strewn all over the place? I don't think they've ever seen anything like that, man. I pulled what was that movie with Denzel Washington? I pulled a Flight one night. Remember that movie? Flight?
No.
He's Denzel Washington is an alcoholic. He's an airline pilot, and
I remember that.
Yeah. It's pretty heavy, heavy movie, but yeah.
Well, you know what? I was thinking a little while ago that part of my hair loss is actually karma, because I mentioned the bozo ring earlier.
Yeah.
And my dad is a Norwood 7. And me and my brothers heckled him relentlessly about his baldness. I mean, we used to call him Bozo the Clown. We would offer to shine his head for a quarter.
Oh, my God. That is funny as a kid, though. I mean, it's a funny kid thing. It's sad. But
it is a funny kid thing, for sure.
We'd run up behind him with socks and start shining his head with a sock while he was sitting on the couch.
And how would your dad react?
He would look at us and he'd say, "Boys, one of these days, y'all just wait."
You wait. He knew it.
There you go.
Let me tell you something. He didn't want his kids to go bald, but you pushed him to a point where he was like, you know what? Fuck these assholes.
Yeah, you kind of did it yourselves.
We were little assholes. But his dad was bald and he was bald, and so he knew it was going to happen to at least one of us three.
And that happened to all three of you?
I'm the worst out of the three. My youngest brother looks like he'll probably keep all his hair. My middle brother has a receding hairline, but it's he still has most of it on top. He's in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
I'm the one that got the short end of the stick with it.
Were you the one who offered the quarter?
Yeah, I was the one who offered a quarter for shining the head. Yep.
All right, Barry, listen, we're gonna take another call. Thank you so much for calling. You're always, it's great to have a fan like you and a guy who really can relate and who's doing well actually now on Finasteride, which is terrific.
Yeah, we'll see. Waiting for those results. I'm just gonna wait it out.
All right, man. Listen, good luck.
All right.
All right, we'll talk
guys.
soon.
Thanks for calling.
Have a good evening.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey, man, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Hey.
Hey.
How you guys been?
Who's this?
Hey.
Oh, Dr. Cole. How are you, man?
Yeah, good. Good. A little bit of jet lag, so to speak.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? So I don't know how much of the program you were listening to, but Dr. Glenn Charles called in, and I gave him an earful of what's happening and what should be happening, and he's in agreement. he thinks that.
I listened to that.
You did.
Yeah, I didn't catch the whole thing. I actually started when he was part way into it, I suppose. But we've been at this for like almost a year now, right?
Yeah.
And I got to say, you keep plugging away, and you're going to get more and more converts. I like the discussion because he basically went through the basics. Everything we've been working on for a long time.
Yeah.
And especially you and Joe. So I thought it was a very productive conversation. And it just goes to show that there's still a lot of people out there that aren't really completely aware of what all you guys are doing.
Well, there's a lot of reasons why. Part of it is it's difficult for them to conceptualize or to fully understand because, most physicians in general, or the way that you guys have operated over the years, like even Dr. Charles, like, well, what is the exact statement? Like there has to be a sentence that's strung together. That's a statement that somehow is on a plaque that we're all trying to get out there, as opposed to, just providing tidbits of education and information in a consistent way that everyone puts together and puts out there simultaneously, whether it's some undercover doc segments, whether it's some of the Joe segments, whether it's some stuff from the Bald Truth, whatever we decide to kind of put together in our kind of a learning center, so to speak, that everyone can utilize, that's what's going to kind of create continuity of message. So when patients come to your websites, everyone is going to have the same message. And then that content will be reinforced by the mainstream, like the Mayo Clinic, which we are, I know the ICHS doesn't like hearing this, but who we are working with, places like WebMD, obviously the American Hair Loss Association, which is, talked about just about every day in the mainstream media. So that's really what it is, as opposed to just, we are, doctors for surgery or whatever the campaign is. That shit doesn't work, Doc.
Yeah, this is sort of an advanced method of action you guys have come up with. And what I like about you is you just keep reinventing the method. And I think that's a great idea, to get more and more of this content out there on individual websites.
Yeah, and that's it. It's not about, everyone's told to use their forward-facing, their consumer-facing resource just to promote themselves. Now, that's understandable. That's what marketing is all about. That's what most people's websites are all about. But if they truly understand that if a section of their site that's prominent is really about educating patients, and that they are provided with, say, a seal from our organization that says that, these people are providing this resource for you so you can make an informed decision before you decide to have surgery, it only emboldens patients and also provides a greater sense of trust in any physician who's willing to provide that information, whether it's another doctor talking or whether it's something from the American Hair Loss Association or the Bald Truth or from Joe Tillman. It doesn't always have to be about the physician themselves. And I think that's the disconnect that a lot of doctors have.
Well, yeah, everybody's worried about losing the patient to the guy next door or the guy in another state. You look at the number of good hair transplant doctors and you look at the number of patients available, you shouldn't ever worry about losing a patient to a colleague that does a good job.
It wouldn't happen anymore. Even if you did, there's going to be 10 patients, outline the front door waiting to come in.
Well, yeah, it's all about trying to keep these young men, women, from going to places that are gonna scar them up and destroy their donor area. If you lose a patient to a good doctor, you haven't lost anything. You've done a service to that to the patient. Right. If you help him get to that doctor.
That's very well said. I appreciate you saying that.
That is the right kind of attitude to have, and I think that if more doctors understood that, of the maybe, say like in any given city there might be one or two hair transplant doctors that are really good. But in another case, let's say there's like multiple. Let's say there's like 4 hair transplant doctors in one metropolitan area that are pretty good at what they do. But in that same city, there's going to be 20 other clinics that have no clue what they're doing. And I think that when, I've talked to some doctors about this, about the concept of forgetting about the competition down the street, because they're no longer your competition, they're your allies. And looking at the competition as being the unlearned hair transplant clinic that is doing a horrible job, the message just doesn't get through sometimes. And it's beyond, I have a hard time understanding why, but I mean, I get it because they're so ingrained in that competition from so many years ago, but they don't get it. They don't understand that the market has changed, not just because of all these cheap places are popping up. It's changed because who was once your competitor down the street is now your ally against a bigger foe. And they don't understand that.
Yeah, they don't have a hard time understanding that. But, you just keep pounding away at the message, and hopefully eventually more and more guys will wake up. I hate to say it, if they don't wake up, a lot of them not going to have much business.
I can guarantee you that they're not going to have a business. I'm at a stage now where if you're not part of the solution, then you're going to be seen as part of the problem. And I don't have to do anything to make that happen. Essentially, it's just we're going to highlight those who are part of the solution. We're going to continue to expose the reality of those who are unwilling to support safety and smart consumerism out of greed or out of fear. That's it. Just like I did at the beginning of my career. I've tried to be, I guess, more politically correct over the last few years. But the reality is that doesn't get the job done. Yeah, that keeps money flowing in, and that keeps things, above board, and that keeps the show out there and all that stuff. And like you said at the conference, and like we're going to put out there for public consumption, I don't need to do that anymore. So, why not come out swinging like I did at the beginning? Because really that's when we effected the fastest change.
That's right.
Oh, that's a good point. It's a solid point.
Yeah.
It's not something everybody can do. So, thanks for you doing it.
Well, we're going to do that. And, Dr. Cole, you're a tremendous support. And I have to say, again, I'm not just saying this to stroke you. What you pulled off in Manchester was a fucking miracle, because I saw what you were up against, and I have to say that it was impressive.
Well, thanks, man.
Yeah. No, really. It really was. Listen, when I got there, I was like, how are we going to do this? What's happening? Everything was, and I'm not saying like people really tried their best, and they were as organized as they could be, of course. But it was a very difficult meeting, I think, to really organize. There were just a lot of different moving parts. Everyone has different concepts, last-minute things that didn't seem to be taken care of, had to be taken care of at the very last minute. And you were the one who had to ensure that all that stuff happened. And somehow you did.
Yeah, well, you popped in when we had our first meeting with the AV guys.
Yeah.
And they pulled out the program, and they were looking through it. And the guy sat over there. He said, "I have never seen anything like this before. This is going to be a disaster."
Yeah, you told me that.
That's good.
Too many talks. There's too many things going on. It's going to be a nightmare. And I said, "Look, dude, you just do your job. And we're going to start on time. We're going to end on time. And you do your job." And when it got done, they were like, "We did it."
And they did a fantastic job. And we actually, my guys, honestly, they were just saying, we didn't expect to be in a place that was going to have daylight. You never expect that. You expect it to be indoors. And so essentially we're surrounded by windows. And so you have sound that's bouncing off of glass. And you also have, people getting coffee. So
Right.
the lighting was difficult to maintain. It had to be, and it's not great. Some of it's good, some of it's really shitty. But you know what? That's fine. We were able to get the interviews done. We were able to make it look fairly good for the lighting and for the position that we had. And even the sound. I mean, that was a tough thing to modulate because, I mean, people were ringing bells. It was tough. You know?
Yeah, you were busy.
Yes.
You were. I think you were going nonstop.
I went nonstop. At
whole day.
the first day was for about 8 hours, and then the second day maybe I did 3, and then another 3 or something like that.
Uh-huh.
But we went to the end, to the very end. I think you were the last person I interviewed, and that was at the end of the meeting.
Oh yeah. I was in a celebratory mood there. It was over.
Yeah. Well, it was listen, again, it was a great job. I think that no matter what some people may think or say, or no matter what transpires in the future, you know, this is a meeting that I think is a catalyst for significant change.
Yeah.
And I'm excited about it. I learned a lot from the meeting, from seeing what's happening behind the scenes and how things are run. And there's a lot that could be done. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I look forward to it.
All right, man.
All right, Doc.
But
Doctor,
I wanted to congratulate Joe on his transplant.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. It was something was just kind of, I don't know, made available, and it was kind of bugging me to begin with. So I talked to Gary about it, but a few weeks ago, and I watched how they're doing things, and it just made sense. So I felt comfortable pulling the trigger. So I appreciate that.
I think maybe they were getting a little concerned that you were getting too comfortable with Dr. Cole.
Yeah, that was Jerry's concern. Yeah.
Jerry's a great surgeon. He's a great surgeon.
All right, Dr. Cole, did you have anything else you wanted to add before I let you go?
Well,
go ahead.
Good work. I mean, you got to stay positive. You guys, over the past year, you keep saying it's like herding cats, and it's a great term.
Yeah.
But you're making progress, and I think you did a lot in Manchester. I think you pulled a lot of people out of the woods and let them know what was going on and how they could be instrumental in getting the word out. Sometimes I don't know how you guys maintain such a positive attitude with all the lethargy in the field of guys that actually benefit the most from getting involved. They don't get involved. A lot of them don't even know about it seems. So just stay positive, guys.
Well, I appreciate that. It is a challenge at times, and sometimes I just want to say, F these guys. But then I realize, when I see the cracks and I see people I had a great conversation with a guy today from Pakistan. And when I see the cracks and I hear what they have to say, and I'm talking about a person who's been in the field for a long time, who said to me that, he has never seen anything like what I do and what we're trying to do. And, this is the only right thing to do, to be involved with what we're doing. That made me feel good. And it wasn't about how many leads are we going to get or what's in it for me or what. It was really about the field.
Awesome.
So people are getting it. So
you need that every now and then.
Absolutely.
I wanted to add that I keep the good attitude only because when Spencer flips the camera off of me onto him, I reach under the table to grab my bottle of scotch. It helps. It helps.
Sometimes I think you guys need it. Sometimes it's like you're talking to a wall.
So, well, you know what? I've been talking to a wall for 20 years, but every once in a while, like I said, I kind of make progress. Someone understands. Look, John, let's face it, Dr. Cole, you and I have butted heads in the past. And it wasn't always the easiest thing, but it takes a very special person to have the humility and the humanity to say, you know what? Shit, maybe this guy is right. Maybe there is something we can do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And vice versa.
Well, I appreciate everything, guys. And we missed you, Joe. We missed you.
Wish I could have been there, but I was going to add to what Spencer said. Looking in from the outside, this conference looked like the Super Bowl. So well done, congratulations. I haven't talked to you for a while, but I wanted to say that congratulations because you really deserve it. Well done.
I got to say, the ISHRS spies. I know that there was one of the kids of one of the guys that one of the politicians there. They must have all been freaking out. Because I've been to a lot or several conferences, and while this isn't, it's not the largest conference in the world, it was pretty big. I was really surprised. I mean, it looked like it was overflowing.
Yeah, we didn't have the biggest room, but we still had 209 registered, which is, that's almost half of. And this is if you include all the sponsors that ISHRS brings in. We didn't bring in near that volume.
Right.
I think if we can keep the pace, then we can have that volume. But if you add all the sponsors and the spouses, they're sitting on 500, 600. We didn't have that. They probably have 150 sponsor people there. So
we can quadruple that.
I think we showed. But I had a couple of guys come up to me, and one of them was Roger with SmartGraph, and he said, I've been to, can't tell you how many conferences, and this was the best organized conference, hands down, I've ever been to.
Yeah.
But the credit actually goes to the speakers and the fact that they stayed on time. And, I tried to get the best possible speakers for individual subjects. Occasionally I had to dance around it a little bit, but we only had to pull one guy off the stage. It really helps to just turn the slides off. They can't talk anymore.
Yeah.
But next year, I think we'll put in a trap door, so at the end of their talk, they disappear.
Get a big hook, pull them off stage like vaudeville.
I like that idea. But also another thing, and the reason why I think this guy, why Roger said something is, it didn't seem as though, even though there weren't as many vendors, it didn't seem as though the vendors were second-class citizens to the rest of the conference. And that's the way that it seems, in my view, when you're at an ISHRS meeting. It seemed like I'm going to give myself some credit. I think that the radio booth really helped a lot because it really focused a lot on on what we're doing, and also it gave people the opportunity to walk around, and it gave the vendors a lot of action.
Yeah. The other thing that was really interesting was, like you mentioned, it was chaos on Wednesday.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, the SIM had forgotten to put AV in the breakout rooms. So,
yeah.
I mean, we had to arrange all that, but it was absolute chaos, Wednesday morning with everybody setting up. You got a video crew there. You got the AV team. You came in. Where am I going to be?
Right.
Where's my booth going to be? And then you come back and look at it toward the end of the day, and you go, God, that all came together.
It did. Yeah. Well, everyone did their individual jobs well.
Yeah.
And
we had a real good support crew there. Sim found those guys, I believe, and they did a nice job.
They did a great job, actually, and they had good equipment. They had good attitudes. And
great attitude.
Yeah, and it was actually a really great room. It was a great room to film in. You had great lighting in the room, so it turned out really well. Well, listen, Doc, we're going to let you go. Thank you so much for calling in, Dr. John Cole. You can find him through IAHRS.org, and everywhere else there are great hair transplant surgeons, which frankly is IAHRS.org. And
oh yeah, all good, all good.
And hair transplant mentor.
Oh, and hair transplant mentor. Don't forget.
Oh,
of course.
Forget him.
Yeah. All right, Doc.
Thanks, Doc.
We'll talk soon.
Take care, guys.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Before we go,
did you want to take one quick call? This guy's been holding on forever.
I want to take one quick call because I think that there's someone trying to get through that wants to talk to me desperately.
Oh, shit. Is it common law? Hold on.
No. She's got my personal number.
Hey, you're on the air. Who's this?
Hello?
Hey, how you guys doing? It's Tony from Washington, D.C.
Tony, what's happening, man?
Hello, Tony.
Hey,
Do me a favor. Can you
can
take
you
yourself
hear me?
off? Can you take yourself off a speaker and talk into the phone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I want to start off by saying that I'm on Finasteride. After I went to see Dr. Cooley, he prescribed it to me, and I'm taking the brand name Teva, or I don't know how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
Teva.
It's the Israeli generic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he suggested for me to take 5 milligrams of that. He told me to split it into 3. So take a third of a tablet on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. That's what he said. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that.
Yeah, sure. Joe, why don't you answer this question? I got to take care of this right now.
Yeah, no worries. So a third or a quarter? I mean, either way. I mean, a lot of doctors will prescribe the medication every other day at some dosage, a quarter tablet, third of a tablet, half tablet, even a full tablet. Sorry, is this a 5 milligram or 1 milligram?
Yeah, it's a 5 milligram, and he said either a third or a fourth.
Yeah. So
it's just really hard.
Well, do you have a pill cutter, or are you doing it with a knife?
I'm doing it with a knife.
Okay. Go to your pharmacy for like $5, maybe a bit more. You can get a pill cutter that makes it so much easier. And
how do you call it?
Just a pill cutter.
Just a pill cutter. They come.
Pill cutter.
Yeah, just ask. Usually they could be either on one of the side panels of the aisles, or just ask for one at the pharmacy.
Yeah. They all carry them, and they're all cheap. So, and easy to use. It's a little box that has a little tiny razor blade in it. You stick the tablet in, line it up, press it down. You just chopped it in half, and then you can chop it into, both halves into quarters. It's much easier, and I would avoid, just my opinion, but talk to your doctor about it. If he agrees that, hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, he can hear
you. Why? Oh, I saw you waving on YouTube. Anyway, that's a delay. Anyway, but if he agrees that a quarter tablet is fine, then try that, because it'll be easier than a third of a tablet.
Yeah. Wait, easier on like my system?
No, easier to cut. It's not about
the
medical aspect. It's not being asked for the cut thirds.
Okay.
There you go. Yeah.
All right, sounds good. Also, so how long exactly or approximately that I could start noticing results from Finasteride?
It could take as little as 3 months, which is unusual. I mean, I was a fast responder, but you got to give it a year, man. You got to give it a year, and you don't even know what those results are going to be. Are the results going to be, wait a second, it doesn't look like my hair loss is progressing. That's a pretty positive result. Some people see the reversal of miniaturization, where the hair that they have just seems to be behaving better, looks thicker, and they may not be growing hair back in specific balding or thinning areas, but the areas that they didn't realize were thinning are starting to look better. That's a possible result. And that's the first thing that I saw within the first 3 months of usage. So it really depends.
Okay, sounds good. That's important to know because, I'll wait a year before I consider another hair transplant.
Yeah, dude. I mean, you can end up growing back enough hair, or increasing the hair shaft diameter of enough hair where it could appear like you had a second hair transplant.
Yep.
Gotcha. Sounds good.
All right, man. Good luck, and yeah, don't rush into surgery.
Yeah. My last question would be for Joe. I just I found out that he got another procedure, and I don't know if I'm correct that you started your first hair transplant when you were 25.
22.
22.
Yes. Huge mistake.
And
huge mistake. Massive.
Yeah. Gotcha. My question would be going to, you had 9 other procedures after that, And I just, I don't know if I can ask this.
Ask anything you want.
How did you like pay for them?
It was easy. I didn't. Here's the thing. When you work for a hair transplant clinic, you're not paying for your work, because it's like for years I was the face of the clinic that I worked for. I was the face of the clinic, so it was in their best interest to give me these procedures.
Let's put it this way. If I choose to have a hair transplant, it's very unlikely anyone's going to charge me.
Oh, okay.
It's called professional courtesy. And in Joe's case, he was actually the face of the clinic.
And not to mention, since I've been independent, I've had clinics offered to do work for me, but there was a moment on this show, I forgot how long ago, it was maybe 4 months ago, and I actually mentioned that I was maybe thinking about having a hair transplant again, and it started a discussion, and I had multiple clinics contact me, multiple clinics saying, some that I don't even work with, saying we would love to have the opportunity to perform a procedure for you. It'd be a great way for you to review our clinic. And I'm like, thanks, but no thanks. I'm not reviewing a clinic as a patient. That's not the way that works. And of course in this procedure, again, I work with Dr. Wong, and it was an opportunity for me to learn about the procedure. So you go back as far as my first one, that's the one I struggled to pay for. I actually had to refinance a new truck that I bought 6 months before just to be able to afford that procedure. But I was determined, and at that point, I would have given my left arm to have a procedure to fix what I had. So that's the way that worked out. And the rest is, it just happened to work out that way.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, man. Well, listen, we wish you the best of luck. And hair transplant surgery is not cheap. Not cheap.
Yeah.
But, Joe is an example of a guy, and I think the fact that he was in a position where he worked for a clinic and was able to have all these experiences is really what creates a tremendous amount of value to what he's able to offer you guys, because most people can't have that done. Yeah. Most people can't go through those many procedures and talk about the entire scope and possible pitfalls and the roller coaster and the emotional aspects and the fear of, okay, is this the one that's going to fuck up my life?
Yeah, I see, man.
Thank
you, guys.
All right, man. All right, good luck. Take care.
Okay.
Did you want to take the last call?
Jesus Christ. All right.
This is the last call, fellas. This is it.
All right.
Hey, man, you're on the air. Who's this?
It's Morty from Florida and currently in New York, actually currently on the Staten Island Ferry.
You're calling from the Staten Island? That is the first call from the Staten Island Ferry.
Yep, I'm actually on the water. Yeah, man. I'm
you sound good. Back. You sound clear.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's good signal, man. No, I was the guys were like, oh, call in, and I'm like, and there's this dude, man, he's like fucking preaching the second coming of Jesus and carrying it on. I'm like, I can't fucking call this guy. I can't even hear the fucking broadcast. Oh man, but dude, I'm so glad I made it in. I actually was visiting a friend of mine, a young lady whom I've known for many years, and I'm in town for the week, and I'm in town for my birthday Thursday. I will be the big 50. And
well, happy birthday on Thursday, my man.
Thank you. I'm going to have a ball. I will probably be calling you from the other side of 50 on Friday.
Dude, 50. Don't even worry. 50 is the new 49. Don't even worry about it.
All right, I'm not. It's happened regardless of whether I worry or not. So fuck it. Right?
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
So,
embrace it.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah, that's the age when you start getting shit cut off your face, and it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
God almighty.
Good times.
Oh, I'll talk to me about getting shit cut off my face, man. I had some shit removed from my fucking arm the other day by this dermatologist. I got to go see him about some other fucking thing that's growing on my finger and whatever the fuck else. But
I have like acetic solar keratosis, like under my eye that I'm supposed to get taken off, and I got
I fucking hate that.
all kinds of fucking shit. And I happen to like the sun. I'm in the sun a lot, and I go out and I'm either playing basketball or swimming or whatever. I'm like, you know what? If this is the consequence at 54, fuck it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the end of the world.
Dude, for 54, you look fucking fantastic. You got nothing to complain about. You are the man, Spence. No question about it.
Oh, I'm a specimen. I'll tell you that. I'm just kidding.
and you, Joe, man, you're heading my way, aren't you? When you hit
I'm a couple of months behind you, buddy. I'm right there, for sure.
I know. Yeah. Well, I sent you an email a couple of days ago warning about the things I wanted to talk about. I didn't get a response. Not sure if you received it, but I wanted to give you the heads up because I wanted to blindside you about any of the questions that I'm going to ask.
No question blindside me unless it's about personal stuff that no one should know. I did see your email, but
it's not about that at all. Actually, the question is pretty much the go ahead.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah.
I did get your email come through,
one, right? So,
but I didn't get a chance to read it. Sorry, we're talking over each other. Can you hear me? Okay.
I can hear you just fine, Joe. Sorry about that.
Okay. Yeah, no worries. Go ahead. So what do you want to ask?
Okay, so first of all, unfortunately, I missed the first hour, and I apologize about that. So if this is a repeat question, you just say, "Hey, I already answered. You go watch the playback, and I'll do that." But if not, this is the question. So the first question I wanted to ask was, we've watched you go through this process from the outside about wanting to do the hair transplant 4 months ago, and then eventually, finally committing and going through it. And maybe you could share a little bit about what was going on inside your mind during this period.
That's a fair question. It's a good question. What was going on in my mind was, my last procedure was 9 years ago, and I knew there was this change coming up in the way I was going to be styling my hair, because up until that point, it was much longer everywhere, and I had my fun with it, with hair color and different hairstyles and haircuts and all this stuff. And getting older, I thought, I want to be able to have shorter haircuts, but I wasn't concerned about the scar. I was concerned about the crown, and anyone that knows me knows that I don't like things that don't look natural. There's a naturalness that the work has to have for me to be happy with it. And the work looked natural, but I mean the placement and the direct, all the things that people look for. But there's one thing that could not be controlled, and that was the issue of terminal hair versus miniaturized hair. And I talk about this. I talk about this in the video I launched 7 days ago tonight. The truth about my 9 hair transplants, where if you drew a line through my crown, the bottom half was full of only miniaturized hairs, where the top half was full of only terminal hairs, because it was all transplant. Everything was done right. If everything was terminal throughout the whole crown, it would have been 100% natural. But it stood out. There was a contrast as far as the strength of the hair that didn't look natural. And so I knew that when my hair would be shorter, that this would stand out. So that was the entire motivation for the 9th hair transplant. And that was to put hair, to do work where there was no work ever done before. And then, just, it's like we were there, so can we beef up the part line a little bit? It's like, sure, no problem. And he touched on my temple points. That was his idea. I wouldn't even talk about it. He said, yeah, let's do these temple points too. I'm like, okay, sure. So that's how that turned out. Fast forward 9 years, that strategy worked out. I pat myself on the back. I was fucking brilliant with that approach. I said, that's what needs to be done. This is the result, and that's how it turned out. The result was great. So ever since then, I've kept my hair not this short, but really short, so that that crown disparity no longer existed. So mission accomplished. So here we are 9 years later, and I've been going longer and longer without getting a haircut, and I noticed that when my hair is longer. The area of that was worked in last time, it's not as dense as the area above it. And so when it starts to grow a little longer, it looks like this hole that's deeper than it should, look, if that makes sense. So I thought, well, it'd be nice to kind of get that filled in a little bit, just to add a little bit more balance. But then I kind of segued into thinking about just be nice to have a little bit more hair. And I've not done a real FUE procedure before. I've done these a couple small ones, like a small test body hair case and a small test scalp hair case. And I thought, I have forgotten more about FUE than some doctors have ever learned, but I've never been through a real procedure. So it's like,
I see.
Why not? Let's try it. So I actually talked to Dr. Wong about it. I was in the clinic a few weeks ago because I was actually making another video.
Morty's like, yeah, I see. Listen, we're going to the next fucking thing already?
Yeah. So I wanted to talk to Dr. Wong on camera, and I found out there was an FUE case for the day. I said, can I sit in on it? So after he cleared it with the patient, I sat in on the procedure, and I watched his technician, Raluca, and she was phenomenal. She's using the WA system by Jean Devois. She was using the trumpet punch. She was using a 0.85, which is what she used on me, and it was fantastic. The grafts were beautiful. I was like, yeah, this looks right. This looks good. And then an opening came up, and it's like, fuck it, let's do it.
Wow.
So there you go.
That's genuinely interesting because, that was leading me into my second question, which was, I remember it wasn't too long ago that you were knocking Dr. Wong about his FUE precisely because of the fact that he was using a technician. Okay. And and more recently I saw the Dr. Cole video, and, you're extolling the virtues that Dr. Cole does everything when he does his procedures. And, there's been many a show where you guys have been talking about, technicians and doctor involvement and all this kind of stuff. And it just was really surprising to me that at the end of the day you went with Cass and Wong, because I was like, well, hang on a second. Joe just did a 180 for all of these great doctors and all of this talk about making sure that the doctor is doing the majority of the work. We have him working with a doctor, which not too long ago you weren't saying positive things about his FUE, and here you are doing FUE with him. So obviously this particular technician impressed you, which is interesting.
Well,
so you kind of answered that question.
Let me clarify. I wasn't knocking Dr. Wong's FUE. I was talking about the fact that it wasn't. I think I don't remember the exact words, but I was talking about how it was an immature, potentially an immature approach, only because they've been doing it for about 5 years. But Dr. Wong's actually doing, like, as a clinic. But Dr. Wong started doing FUE back in. Well, I had my body hair test in 2006, if that tells you something. And
okay, so you're looking at about 11, 12, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there's that. That needs to be clear, that I wasn't knocking the FUE. I was knocking the, or I wasn't even knocking. I was just talking about how it's kind of immature as far as like the procedure that they were using at the time. They've actually bounced around to some procedures, but they've settled on this WA system. And I know the WA system inside and out myself because so many other clinics are using it and I've watched it. But something I also need to make very clear is I have never been anti-technician. Never. No one can point to any episode, any video, any comment I've made that's been anti-technician. What I have been against is illegal technician. Huge difference. But another thing I know about
also what we're against and what I'm against is the fact that physicians are not telling patients that they're going to have technicians performing the surgery. If it's legal in your state or province and that's what's happening, my mantra is train the fucking technicians and let patients know. Give them full disclosure. Period. We talk about turnkey practices that utilize per diem technicians who have never met the patient, who are not listed on the doctor's website. I'm not a fan of that.
No, not at all. I think of the guy from was it RoboCop from Hawaii. He went in and had a consultation with the doctor who doesn't even have a consultant. Said, "Yeah, let's do this for surgery." Showed up for surgery, and there was there were 2 technicians that had just flown in the night before from LA. He had no fucking clue who these girls were, and God bless him, he had a good result that he's happy with.
Yeah.
But he had no clue. He's like, "Who the hell are you?" "Oh, we're doing your surgery." In my case, I've known this technician for 12 years, personally. I used to work with her.
Clearly a different situation.
It's a completely different situation. I understand your question, but there are 2 things about it. Number one, it's an incorrect observation about my position.
Okay.
Well, the one thing, it's just an incorrect observation. I understand where you're coming from, but you're not understanding me correctly.
Well, you talk about incorrect.
I get the correction, and that's one of the reasons why I had to ask.
Well, I was actually at this conference, and a guy who I happen to like very much, he came up on the podium after I gave a talk and some other people gave a talk, and he essentially asked me some pointed questions about essentially saying that, well, aren't you a guy that, initially was promoting FUE as being scarless and some other shit? And I had to own this poor guy, who I happen to like a lot, and, essentially just educate him about the real history. And I said, it's kind of like the telephone game with the ISHRS and all of your colleagues and all the politicians, because usually you guys, or a lot of these guys, are basing a lot of important decisions based on hearsay, innuendo, and completely false information. I'm the one guy, maybe I introduced FUE to the United States, but I'm the one guy that always initially thought that it was a great ancillary procedure, and that anyone who claimed that it was scarless should essentially be, drawn and quartered, in a sense. Yeah. And I made that very clear in every program. And I told this guy, I said, "Paul, you might want to listen to my show once in a while." And you know what? He was gracious enough to say, "You know what? I didn't realize this. I guess I'm wrong. I had no idea." And he apologized on stage. But I got to tell you, I felt like Michael Corleone sitting there in front of the Senate or the Congress, whatever, the committee, answering questions, because it was that type of microphone, and it was on this panel.
Oh, my God.
But it was a great
opportunity. Like you're in front of a congressional committee.
Yeah, congressional committee, exactly. But it was a great opportunity to own this guy, who I didn't want to do it. It wasn't. I say that in a loving way. I happen to like this guy a lot. But what it did was it showed, and it was very clear, because this guy is not an adversarial guy. This is the guy. This is not a guy that dislikes me. He is a guy that has just been fed the same bullshit information that has been fed to this industry for years. And you're a guy who gleaned information from Joe that was just, people kind of just hear what they want to hear, And anyway, it kind of reminded me of that situation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've been calling in enough for you guys to realize that when I have a question, I don't mean anything by it. I'm not trying to nail anybody. I just want to make sure that I understand what the positions that you guys are taking. The thing that struck me was, is that, Joe, you've done a lot of videos and a lot of different doctors and your criteria has always been, I will only review a doctor that I myself would have surgery with. And I would consider having surgery with. You would consider having surgery with, yes. That's been your position. And like I said, I had a little bit of a chuckle where at the end of the day, you just went straight back to your first doctor. That was the kind of thing that I noticed. I was like, oh, okay, after reading all these doctors and, having all these rave reviews on these doctors, that at the end of the day, you went back to Hassan and Wong. Now, let's look
at this from a logical point of view, okay? Fact number one, I live 20 minutes from the clinic.
Okay, fair point.
Fact number two, he's already like world-class already. Like there's no debating Dr. Wong is world-class. Fact number three, he's been my doctor for 17 years, right? He knows my head better than anyone. And to say that I'm comfortable with Dr. Wong would be an understatement. He's like a second father to me. When you look at the doctors or the clinics that I've reviewed, I've dealt with, I deal with, if Dr. Wong wasn't available, No question. I would be on a plane heading to any one of them. But here's the difference. You guys wouldn't know about it. Because if I were to hop on a plane and go to, Clinic A in whatever state or province or wherever, and said, this is the clinic I chose for my own hair transplant, how do you think the other clinics would feel that I work with? How do you think that my discussions about these clinics would be relevant in the eyes of people like you, knowing that I chose one clinic over the other? For me to go back to Dr. Wong, that's a no-brainer. Like, no one can blame me for that. No one can look at me and say, well, you legitimately, it's like, well, you got all these other doctors. Why didn't you go to them? Because they're not my doctor. Dr. Wong is. That's just what it comes down to. When I look at
that's a very good explanation. I mean, it certainly it avoids the whole question. It's like, okay, I can pick Dr. Wong because ultimately nobody can ever blame me for having picked him. But if I pick anybody else, people are going to say, why did you pick that guy over that other guy?
And you know what? I can't pick anyone.
Yeah, he can't. He's stuck.
That's my problem.
You're Spence, you're fucked. What can I say?
I'm gonna have to either glue on a piece, or I'm gonna have to basically have someone sign their life away to guarantee that I will make $5 million if they speak about me having the transplant with them.
But in fairness, I could still, like, I'm probably going to, okay, never say never, right? I've never said I'll never have another hair transplant. I've always said maybe, probably not, but who knows? Never say never. Will I get hair greed again? Maybe. And if I do, I can't say I'd be going back to Dr. Wong because I'll have to utilize beard and chest hair. And that would mean someone else. But guess what? If I do, or when I do pick someone, you guys aren't going to know, because I mean they're going to have to understand that they can't talk about it for those reasons I talked about, right?
Gotcha.
So that's the position I'm in. It's like, yes, I could get a hair transplant anywhere I want for free. They would roll out the red carpet, just like for Spencer. But I can't do that because that takes away some of my credibility, right?
I bet. Yeah, I bet.
There you go.
Well,
how's that for
Thank you for answering this. Yeah, I think it's a damn good one, especially it makes all the sense in the world. And hey, you guys need to make a buck. This is your bread and butter. You got to be able to keep playing the roles that you play, and that's one of the things that you have to do.
I think we should start. Yeah. I think we should start reviewing and charging techs. That's the next.
Well,
that's the next goal.
That's a very good point. I mean, if this story doesn't drive that point home, I don't know what does. The idea that at the end of the day, the decision was made because of a tech. That's huge.
Morty, here's the thing. I'm a big believer. Like, I think clinics that have techs doing the majority of the surgery should actually list those techs on the website. Doctors don't want to do that because they don't want them to be poached.
That's right.
But
that's the only reason, which is crazy.
My concern versus a technician being poached versus a patient having a full understanding of who's doing the surgery, I don't give a shit what these doctors think about that. Yep. They can go fuck themselves over that, because this is patient understanding and patient awareness of who's doing their surgery. That's part of the reason why I was talking about.
I got to tell you, Jay, you're stealing my bit a little bit there.
Well, because it's our bit. It's our bit.
No, I mean, Spencer, I think you're right. I think that the techs are becoming so important in this field that you're doing the patient a disservice to not only identify that a tech is being used, but not to identify which tech is being used. And more importantly, that those techs, if they are doing the lion's share of the work, the patient needs to know something about them.
One of the things that bugs me the most about how clinics present their results is when you see a result by a doctor's clinic, and people are talking about how great that doctor is. Guess what the doctor did? He drew a fucking hairline. He made some incisions for the graft to go in. Where was the doctor's involvement in the actual surgery?
I can tell you this: if I actually just gave a shit about money, techs would have no problem paying their fucking bills.
Yeah, they'd be happy to
charge them, $500-600 a month. They would be ecstatic. And they would just keep paying. That's it. They want to be out there. They want to be looked at as really the person who has the skill and the wherewithal, and the person that's in charge and responsible for the end result. They would appreciate that adulation.
Yeah, but maybe what needs to happen is like I said, if you can form some sort of
I just bought the domain, by the way, so fuck you, Joe. I got it first.
Damn it. Which domain?
I'm not going to tell you.
Oh, okay. What I was going to say was, there should be an international association of hair transplant technicians.
Well, it's interesting that you say that. It's something that we have been working on, and we have been trying to get our doctors to add their techs. Joe said something very interesting. A lot of doctors don't want to do it because they're afraid their technicians are going to be poached. But in the next few months, that's going to have to change, because that's going to be one of the criteria that is going to be really thrust upon the field. It's going to, if you use technicians, then technicians have to be named.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree 100%. 100%.
And then
a way to look them up and find out about their quality, and just like it is with the IHRS in terms of the doctors, you have to be able to have a list of good ones.
I also think that you should. There has to be. I actually think technicians should be drug tested. I think doctors should be drug tested.
Put that feather in your cap.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Do you know how many? Do you know? And there would be a lot of golden follicle awards on eBay.
Oh, man.
Not saying that anybody with a golden follicle award has ever been on drugs that I'm aware of. I was just making a joke. But
I'm thinking Lance Armstrong, man. It's like, that's it. You're doping during your hair transplant. You're disqualified.
Do you know how many doctors have been caught prescribing medications to themselves in this industry? Several.
I have no doubt. Well, most doctors in any specialization are going to find that.
And really well-known people, well-respected people.
Morty, when we say we know where all the bodies are buried, we're not kidding.
I believe it.
I also think there should be criminal backgrounds checks for technicians.
See if they're drug dealers.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Things like that. Yeah,
100%.
I was going to say, what would really blow the world apart is if you had a technician clearinghouse where a doctor, since this is happening already, just, okay, look, you're a doctor, right? Because right now you're a doctor, potentially legally you can perform surgery, legally you can perform, because it's happening everywhere. You guys are telling me about this constantly. Just have a place where doctors can actually find technicians and book the technicians.
There's an app for that.
In the public domain.
It already exists.
No.
Literally, there's an app for that. I swear to God. There's an app for that.
But the thing of it is that it should be open to the consumer, so the consumer can say, oh, I'm booking with Surgeon A on April the 14th. I want Technician 1 and Technician 2, Technician 1 to do the extraction, Technician 2 to do the insertion. I don't know.
Here's how you can take care of that today. Okay, and this is for anyone and everyone watching or listening. The way that you take care of that is when you're on a website, okay, and you're deciding between clinics, through your diligence, through your own efforts, when you're having consultations with various clinics, it's extremely important that you are the one that asks this critical question: who is doing my surgery? Will the doctor be doing all the surgery, or will there be technicians involved? And if there are technicians involved, to what level? Are they doing, like, assuming FUE? Are they doing the scoring of the tissue? Are they doing the extraction of the grafts? Are they making any sort of cuts for incision making to place the grafts? Are they placing the grafts themselves? Is it stick in place? All these questions you want to
I just found out on Facebook. I found out that Ricardo Mejia places his own grafts. Did you know that?
I did not know that. Good for him. And then if they are using technicians for their FUE procedure, then you ask, well, which one of these clinic or which one of these results on your website did these technicians work on? Because you find the results, you want the better people. That it's like, I think that's completely rational. Who worked on this patient? I want the technicians that worked on this patient. Not a problem.
But here's the problem. Here's the problem with that.
No,
You're going to be lied. You're going to be lied to. You're going to be lied to in a million ways, unless the patient is actually able to vet their own technicians. It's all for naught. It's great to ask. It's great to ask.
They could be telling you a load of shit, and the technician who is there, because he's there, they're there in the room, they're going to say whatever needs to be said to get you in that.
But here's the good news: if you are a good read of people, and you catch them off guard, then you'll know if these doctors are full of shit, because they're not used to a question like that.
And I was going to say, like, and you might actually be labeled as like a troublemaker by the clinic if you're asking such questions. Like red flags will go up. But here's the thing: enough people start to ask these questions, they'll volunteer the information. They'll get on board. They'll be like, "Shit, we need to start talking about this."
Right, and there should be a file. Every technician should have a CV, and those CVs should be made available to every patient.
Yeah. All of these things are great, but none of these things currently exist. I mean, it's bad enough that you go to websites and you look at before and after photographs, and they're not even from even the clinic, let alone the doctor or the technician. You know, the only hope is, like I said, we're dealing with, the clinics. I mean, the way I'm hearing this, at the end of the day, the doctor's name on the IHRS doesn't even really matter. In some respects, it's the clinic's name or the business behind it, because of all the different players that you have involved.
Well, I'm going to tell you this, that I would tell you this. For a very long time, the doctor's name was everything. Now, in my view, the doctors who are on the IHRS, who've been known to have really good reputations, at the very least, understand that in order to maintain those reputations, that they have to provide the infrastructure and have the right staffing to make sure that their name is not dragged through the mud. And these guys also have the experience to train their staff properly, or to use the right staff, so that the final outcome is on par with what they were doing when they were just doing strip. So you're still going to be in a better position, but the reality is you're not too far off, man.
Oh, I'm hearing it, and the more that this process progresses, the more right I'm going to become with this. You know, that's it in a nutshell. It's scary times, man. No question
you know
about
what?
it.
I think
You
it's
need you
time I
guys more
fucking
than ever,
sell
bro.
out, though. I think now is the perfect time to sell out.
Well, Morty, let me tell you something.
Tex R Us was just founded.
Morty, let me say something, Morty. You, over the past year and change, I will say this: you have transformed from someone that was desperate for surgery to someone that is now taking it slow, and you have learned so much. You know so much about the procedure and about what to look for and about what constitutes good versus bad now than you ever imagined possible. And so I'm confident that as you move forward, you're going to make the right decision for yourself in time.
But not even a card or a present or a check or anything for us. Nothing.
Oh, is that right? Well, you guys are not-for-profit, right?
Say that again?
I said, are you guys a not-for-profit?
No, we are not non-for-profit.
Oh, I was going to say, because I was going to do.
Sadly, we're volunteers. Non-for-profits get salaries.
You talk about a check. I was like, you talk about a check. I was going to run one of those little Facebook campaigns, because I ran one for a charity this year for my birthday. I was going to say, raise money for the IHR.
Oh yeah, that'd be suicide. If you want to raise money, if you want to start a Patreon page for the Ball of Truth, we'll take that money.
Nothing wrong with that.
Okay.
Damn right we will. Fuck everybody. Listen, Morty, we got to go. We got to go. It's late.
All right, guys. Listen, thank you for hanging on. I appreciate it.
All right.
Love you guys. We'll talk to you when I turn 50.
Great call. Happy birthday, by the way.
Happy birthday.
Thanks,
Okay.
bro. Take it
Bye-bye.
easy. All right. Good night.
Good night. Websites real quick.
Hairlossexperiences.com, a great resource, great clinics, great patients, hairlossexperiences.com, bellycapelli.forumfree.it, the Italian version of Hair Loss Experiences because it's Italian, not English. But everything's in Italian, but if you're using a good browser, it'll translate into English or whatever language of your choice. And again, great clinics, sharing the results, great patients, sharing experiences. Finally, international-hairlossforum.com, and that is the French version of the two previous versions I just told you about, and they do the same thing. Great resource. All three support our message, and we sincerely appreciate that support. Back to you, Spencer.
And Joe's actually going to start doing this from now on. Joe's going to promote his own shit on the show. What are your websites, Joe?
No, you promote my shit and I'll promote your shit. How's that?
Okay. Promote mine
Third
first.
party validation.
All right, check out hairtransplantmentor.com for anything Joe Tillman. Learn about Joe's lifelong, insane experience as a hair transplant patient and being in the trenches in the hair transplant industry. That's hairtransplantmentor.com. Also,
no one's commenting on my haircut. What's up with that?
Everyone's what?
None of the callers talked about my haircut. What's going on?
Andrew Zarian did.
Oh, what? He called in?
No, he didn't call in. He wrote. He said he should be wearing the curtains out, the shirt that looks like his grandmother's curtains with that haircut.
Which one of us?
He actually said you look good. What is it? YouTube.com/hair transplant mentor. Join the fun on Joe's YouTube channel. Please subscribe. It's very important. And once you subscribe, ring that bell so that you're notified when we go live and when Joe Tillman goes live when he does his own thing. That's youtube.com/hair transplant mentor. Check out thebaldtruth.com archives of this broadcast. Please subscribe to thebaldtruth.com. Just leave your email address. They are not sold. They're not given away. You're not going to be solicited to buy anything or to get a hair transplant or any shit like that. International Alliance of Hair Restoration Surgeons is IAHRS.org. We are one organization that does not endorse or promote third-party online consultations, which is insane.
It's important.
And it's on the fringe of violating, in some parts of the country, HIPAA laws. But doctors don't seem to give a shit about that.
Which is crazy.
Yeah. But my advice is you do not, if a website has a free online consultation form, it's a third-party website, what do you think it's there for? It's there to sell hair transplants. It's something we never did. It's something that many doctors have asked me to do, and I refused to do it. We are a real society of like-minded physicians who support our message, which is surgery is a last resort, so support the concept of smart consumerism and having people learn and be as informed as possible before making a very important decision. And frankly, if you could decide not to have surgery, that's a great decision for you. Surgery, again, is always a last resort. It's IAHRS.org. Also, the American Hair Loss Association. That's AmericanHairLoss.org. Until next time. Oh, baldtruthtalk.com for the forum. Is that it?
But stay off the forum.
But stay off the forum. Until next time, be strong, God bless, and thank you so much for listening. Have a good night.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry for any inconvenience you may have been put to prior to the program, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. And if you could now leave by the exits at the rear, that'd be splendid. Thank you.